we have a quorum. May we have the roll call, please, Gail?
Mayor Sticks,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney,
Here.
Councilmember Blatz,
Here.
Councilmember Francina,
Here.
and Councilmember Wyrick is attending remotely, and I don't think he's in the meeting yet.
Okay, we have a quorum. So welcome, everyone, to the August 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Ojai City Council. Randy, will you do the pledge for us, please?
Yes, I will,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Randy, and welcome back, everyone, from our summer break. Didn't really feel like a break, but we're back. So thank you for being here. Approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, could we have a roll call, please, Gail?
Councilmember Blatz,
Yes.
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick,
Yes.
Okay, great. And then we do have the presentation of the 2022 Ojai Day poster. Exciting. Thank you, James.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to pull up our slideshow with the different posters for this year. Give me 1 second. Okay. And so this year, we held a poster competition for the 2022 Ojai Day poster, and we advertised the competition through our city website, through our Ojai Day page, through our Facebook and Arts Commission pages. We had a submission deadline of July 1st, 2022. We received 9 submissions this year of different posters for consideration as this year's Ojai Day poster. We had a panel of judges, which included, and this is our opportunity to say thank you to them for doing this. So it included Bernadette DiPietro, Christine Golden, Bob Kemper, Mark Lewis, and Mark Lewis. They reviewed the posters and chose the winning submission. And so with that, I'm going to show the 8 posters, and then we'll pause, and then I'll talk a little bit about the winning poster. So these are the first 8 posters. This was Susan Guy's Fox Canyon. This was Christine Ellison's Ojai's Rainbow.
It's beautiful.
And sorry, this was Lindsay Thompson's Untitled.
3 moons over Ojai.
Yeah.
Lindsay Thompson submitted a few of them, and they're all very interesting. This one is a little planet. This one is Mustard Mountains and a Trio of Trees. This is an interesting one. Maddie Brannon's What Ojai is All About. And this one and the next one, I think that was also Maddie Brannon, was interesting, trying to see all the little things hidden in the posters, all the different references. This is the other one, Thank You, Ojai. This is Tony McMahon's Ojai's Birth. And then finally, the selected artwork was submitted by artist Gail Childress, who is also an Ojai studio artist for 2022. This is her painting titled The Bounties of Ojai. She stated that her concept is the visual listing of the uniqueness of the town of Ojai and Ojai's bounties of natural landscape gifts. And so this is the Ojai Day 2022 poster. Gail Childress received a prize from the city. I believe it was $250 prize this year. And this will be the poster used on the this will be the artwork used on the posters that will be available at this year's Ojai Day. We'll be releasing those posters starting in mid-September, and we'll have them available as well at Ojai Day for people interested in obtaining a copy. So this is Ojai Day's poster 2022. And so thank you to Gail Childress, and thank you to all those judges who participated in that process.
And thank you, James, for organizing it. Congratulations, Gail, and also congratulations to all the other artists, because everything's just stunningly beautiful, and
Oh, beautiful.
we're so lucky to have so many artists in town. So
Every year we say we're going to try to figure out a way to use all of them. So
Maybe we'll
we
have
might
them all-
we might
they'll
try
all be
to
on
this year.
display,
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah, we could do that. We put them all on display at
Yeah.
our booth.
The symbolism in some of them was just incredible. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, there was some that you could stare at for a while and see all the different things hidden in it. So very interesting.
thank you, James. Any commission reports tonight?
I do not believe so. Gail, did you have any commissioners signed up?
No.
Okay.
Okay, all right, we will move on to public communication, and just a reminder, these are items not on the agenda, and because they're not on the agenda, we cannot discuss them. When you make a comment, we're not ignoring you. We appreciate your viewpoint and participation, and we can agendize for the future. Public comment is 3 minutes, and we will have a chime as a gentle reminder at the end of the 3 minutes, and there's no giving away time, so thank you so much for being here. And we will start with Michelle Pinero, then Linda Harmon, and then Leonard Claife.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Pinero, and I'm here tonight to announce that I'm running for a seat on Ojai City Council. I live in District 1, and I will be on the ballot this November 8th. Some of you may recognize me from last Thursday's forum, but for those of you who are new to my face, both tuning in and here in this room, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my background. I graduated from The Ohio State University in 2008 with a dual degree in political science and journalism. Shortly after graduating, I moved out to Southern California, and I pretty quickly became involved in civic life. I was a campaign director at a national peace nonprofit where I worked extensively with both national and local governance. I then used that position to leverage a spot in a congressional campaign where I helped a candidate in Los Angeles' 33rd district become elected. I was on their policy and issues research team. Currently, I am a marketing consultant and a mother to an amazing 4-year-old little girl. I'm running for city council, in short, because I love Ojai, and I feel obligated to do everything that I can to make this city sustainable, diverse, inclusive, and a prosperous community. I have lived in Ventura County for 4.5 years, and I have tuned in and watched every single city council meeting for the last year. I am invested in this community, and I care. Many of the issues that we face today are unprecedented, and I am pragmatic enough to understand that the solutions and the actions that we need to move us forward are going to have to come from fresh and diverse leadership. A leadership that is diverse and as representative of our evolving community. I believe that I can be that bridge, and I hope that you will join me in creating something great together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have Linda Harmon, then Lenny Claife, and then Jill Dolan.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and staff. I'm here this evening representing Ojai Trees, a nonprofit founded by Tom Bostrom in 2008. For those of you not familiar with us, our mission is to maintain our urban tree canopy by dedicating ourselves to planting trees, as well as teaching others in our valley how to select the right tree for the right place, plant trees, and care for them. We have planted over 1,760 trees in our over 14 years. We've also donated and planted trees in our public parks, our watershed, and in our schools. That's our history, and we're proud of it because trees are an essential part of this nation's plan to fight climate change. Trees are natural sequesters of carbon. They increase rainwater retention and can reduce temperatures under their canopy by as much as 20 degrees. If sited correctly, they reduce energy costs for homeowners and businesses alike. Their shade supports a more pedestrian-friendly town that encourages folks to get out of their cars and enjoy the beautiful surroundings and neighborhoods that Ojai has to offer. I think those are all things that make Ojai more resilient. So where am I going with all this? Well, our board has asked me to address you tonight about the future of Ojai and its trees. We were told that with the additional revenue the city gained from Prop C, that some of that would go to hiring a staff person, preferably an arborist, whose duties would include overseeing care of our trees. This hasn't happened. We are asking tonight that the City Council direct staff to hire a full-time accredited arborist and maintain a dedicated staff to steward the care of our precious tree canopy. Our trees need a public steward, and they deserve it. There are many problems the city, if properly staffed and funded, could swiftly address. Ojai became Tree City USA, something I think we all are proud of, but I'd like to read one of the requirements for that designation. Standard 1, form a tree board or department delegating responsibility for the city-owned trees, the first official step to becoming a tree city. By forming a tree board or department, cities can create a more organized and effective urban forestry plan. At this time, we have no such board or department. We would like the situation to be rectified and also suggest the following things that a new tree department could handle if we dedicate ourselves to saving our urban canopy. 1, make licensing a business requirement to do any tree trimming in Ojai. Said licensing should require proof of training by an arborist or experience with an arborist knowledgeable in our area, along with necessary insurance. Okay. Trees are being damaged by improper trimming on a daily basis by uneducated trimmers and private citizens alike. They are too often topped, which will leave them at risk of sunburn and promote weaker growth, more prone to limb failure down the road. A tree planted in the right place should not need trimming unless there's a dead wood, crossing branch growth, or if an owner wants to take weight off the ends of a heavy limb that extends over a building. We can't do anything but educate the owners themselves who may trim their trees improperly, but we can certainly require someone who is setting up a for-profit business in Ojai to be licensed in Ojai. 2, trees also need to be properly watered during this drought, even mature ones. The city could take on this responsibility in an organized manner. We as an organization did it for the first 5 years for the street trees that we have planted. Other trees now need to be evaluated and watered as needed until conditions change. Our website has specific directions and a video for watering that homeowners and business owners can use that also outlines the reasons this is necessary. And our website is ojaitrees.org. One more thing.
Could you repeat that?
Oh, sorry.
The-
Ojaitrees.org.
Ojaitrees.org.
Right.
For people to learn how to water properly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 3, replace all missing, damaged, or dying trees and find additional suitable tree locations. We can help with that, and we'd love to. There's a saying, the perfect time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Our founder took the initiative years ago in helping create our Ojai Tree Ordinance, formed a tree committee, created a recommended tree list for the city, which the city has just updated, and surveyed and mapped our existing heritage trees. Without him, we would be much farther behind in protecting our trees than we are now, and we thank him. We have done all we can, and we will continue to do all we can, but we need the city to step up and do their part. I'd like to end this with a positive note. Our city staff is wonderful, and we are lucky to have them. We are lucky you, our city council, who offers this opportunity to speak before you. We are grateful to all the staff who has worked with us over the years during public planting events and supplying the support of a water truck during our watering days. We have so many beautiful native mature trees, some hundreds of years old. We need to take seriously our responsibility to future generations of Ojai and the planet to maintain them and plant new ones as these valued citizens pass on. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry I went over.
Thank you, Linda.
I have a copy, too.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Jill Dolan, then Lenny Claife, and then Jeffrey Starkweather.
Hello, I'm back. I'm Jill Dolan, and I hope you have me memorized by now, like with your lines and everything. I'm with the Ojai Art Center Theater, and I'm here to bring you up to date on what's happening now. Right now, we're running a wonderful one-woman show. It's not a wonderful woman, it's me. It's a wonderful one-woman show called Just the Ticket, starring Lynn Van Emmerich, and we opened over the weekend, and it's really, really a lovely piece. She does a great job, and I would say it's for people of a certain age, perhaps. Anyway, I think you'd really enjoy it, and I hope you can come and share that experience with us. I'd also like to announce that on the first Tuesday of September is our theater branch meeting. It's open to the public. All our meetings are. And at that meeting, we're going to be announcing our 2023 season. So if anybody wants to become a volunteer or know what's up that they might want to audition for or anything like that, that will be the first opportunity to know what that season will be. And then opening on September 30th, we have another show, Walter Cronkite is Dead, which is about two women sort of trapped in an airport, polar opposites philosophically, who have to come to terms with their differences and or sit in silence and drink. Both things kind of happen. It's fun. It's a fun show. And then our Christmas program is Elf the Musical. So auditions for that will be coming up too. So if you have a little, it's a multi-generational show. So if you're dying to be in Elf the Musical, I encourage you to go to our website, ojaiact.org. This is where you can buy tickets and find out information about our upcoming show. So thank you very much. And may I hand you all a little card for this? I know, you're starting to come. Give them to Gail and she'll pass them out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Next, we have Lenny Claife, then Jeffrey Starkweather, then Leslie Rule.
Good evening, everybody. I was going to talk about trees, and I will, but as president of the board of the Art Center, let me just say that the play that's on now with Lynn Van Emmerich is only 2 more weekends, Friday and Saturday nights at 7, Sundays at 2. Reservations can be had at ojaiact.org. And the only other thing I would say about that is Lynn Van Emmerich is a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous actor, and anything that she does, a one-woman show, is definitely worth seeing. And the other thing I guess I should mention is there are 5 Santa Clauses in Elf the Musical, and I am starting my beard, hoping to be one of them.
We want to hear your ho, ho, ho.
I wanted to talk about trees too. I second everything my wife Linda Harmon said, but my focus is on Southern California Edison and the horrible job they do of butchering trees in Ojai. I cannot tell you the number of times either Linda and or myself have watched as an Edison tree truck pulls up in front of an oak tree, starts taking out the equipment. When we approach and say, do you have an arborist? Are you aware this is an oak? They either claim not to know that it was an oak, which is possible because they really don't know much anything, and then pack up and leave. We have called this to the city's attention numerous times, and what we are told is we're working on it, but golly gee, we can't follow them around. Maybe that's one thing somebody who would be the tree person in Ojai could do, is follow them around, because something needs to be done to stop them from butchering our trees. It's a travesty. It's improper. It violates city ordinances, and they do it with impunity. So please act on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny.
Ask our city manager, at the end of the meeting, you don't have to answer now, but could we just put on the agenda or something, or do something where Edison absolutely has to have an arborist when they come to Ojai, and we could provide it? And I would, I know it's not on the agenda, but that's what I would like to see happen.
So the item could be requested. We'd have to do some research on what could be done. So that can be requested at the end of the meeting. I did want to just note, because I've had several of those discussions, and I want to be clear, the answer is not golly gee. The answer is we call Edison and we tell them that we expect a higher level of trimming here. And I could say that they tell us every time that we are the most, the city that holds them to the highest standard, and that they are struggling to meet our standard. And we've told them, we understand that, but you need to meet the Ojai standard. And we've cited them several times. And so we don't throw our hands up and say, like, sorry, but you know, it's an ongoing battle. They've made the argument, and I can't get too far into it, but they have a mandate to do all this work to prevent the next fire. We've told them we understand that, but they need to meet our standard, and we've held them to that consistently. So,
Okay, thank you, James. Next, we have Jeffrey Starkweather, then Leslie Rule, and then Andy Gilman.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, fellow citizens. Let me just say I love Ojai Trees. We have 9 of them in our house, in our small little lot, and I've been out with them numerous Saturdays digging trees, and it's a very communal thing. So I'm a big supporter of Ojai Trees, and I think maybe a start might be some kind of a board, because doesn't cost any money to get people together to start seeing how they could do things. But anyway. My second thing is this Sunday at 1:30 with doors open, 2 p.m. The speaker is our Assemblyman Steve Bennett is going to be a guest at the Ojai Valley Democratic Club meeting. Of course, as you know, there are a lot of issues around housing, around water, around all kinds of things that the Assembly, in fact, there was a great article this week about how Newsom's going to balance pushing housing and climate control at the same time. So I think we should have a lot of questions for him, and obviously what happens in Sacramento is it makes a big difference for our city. So I would hope you'd come. The second thing, or third thing I want to talk about, and I've got 1 minute and 42 seconds, and I won't take that long. I've been to a lot of meetings, and I hear a lot of people say things about concern about water. We shouldn't do things because of water, but I never hear any real facts. So I went on the Casitas Water District website, found their annual report, which was on May 11th, 2022, and it also references their water efficiency and allocation program, which was passed in May 12th, 2021. And then I listened to the meeting. They had a PowerPoint. And I think what I heard was a lot different when I'm hearing in these meetings, that we're not in a bad shape. And I'm not going to tell you, I'm not an expert on it. I think it would really do this board and this town well to invite them to come to your meeting and present their report, annual report, as to what the status is, because this affects you. That's where we get our water from. We don't control it. They provide it. And the figure about, well, you're worried about the lake. We only get 20% of our water from the lake. They don't consider us in a crisis. But, you know, again, they ought to come, make the presentation, let citizens ask questions, let you ask questions, and let's get some facts about what our real situation is, because they are the people that supply us water. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Next, we have Leslie Rule, then Andy Gilman, then Robin Gerber.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. Like Michelle, I am also running for City Council in District 1, so I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to me. I will start with my experience because that differentiates me from my opponents. I have very deep municipal governance experience. I started as an ad hoc member of a planning board working on affordable housing and also building codes and how they affect each other. I was then elected to a school board where I was chair of the education committee, trying to figure out the best types of curriculum for our particular students. I was then drafted to be on the city council for my small town, and basically I worked on infrastructure and weather on that. I was also on the advisory board for the science teachers of Berkshire County and worked as a teacher trainer for science teachers. My background, I have an undergraduate degree from University of California at Berkeley in rhetoric and linguistics, and a graduate degree in educational anthropology from Harvard. My last job, I was project manager of a National Science Foundation grant that was housed at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts and also Williams College. So I am a scientist. I believe in data. I believe in science. And I believe in science education as a way forward, an important way forward. But most importantly, I'm creative, I'm a collaborator, and I'm a consensus-driven problem solver. I don't believe there are any problems that people of goodwill and honest intent who are determined to find a solution can't find a solution. So I'm asking for each one of your endorsements. I did go to the forum and the Democratic Club Forum and do have that endorsement, but I'm asking for your endorsement as well. And if not, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about it. I'm happy to discuss. The three things that I really feel are important for Ojai that I can add to are fire resilience, affordable housing. I have 10 years in affordable housing building, especially short-term affordable housing, as you run through the longer-term things that take years and years and years to get past. I know how to do it in 3 months. I've done it a number of times. And then I have a plan for a sustainable Ojai. Not my plan. I have a group of people who we have started discussing what a sustainable Ojai could actually look like, given that we are a town that runs on tourism. And finally, I vote trees. I would put it on the agenda. I would find a second, and I will follow that truck around, and I will make sure that they cut that properly. So thank you very much for your time, and once again, I hope to have your endorsement. It's District 1, and I'm happy to discuss anything with anyone at any time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie.
I'm not a one-person issue, by the way. What I will advocate for as an individual is not necessarily what I would advocate for as a council person. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Andy Gilman, then Robin Gerber, and then Bob Daddy.
Good evening, council and staff. I'm here to mention 2 events on behalf of the Ojai Chautauqua. One is, and hopefully it's not a surprise, on Wednesday, September 7th at Matilaha Auditorium, we will be hosting a candidate forum. And so far, all of the city council candidates have been very positively affirmative that they are attending. We haven't got confirmations from everybody, but hopefully you received an email from me this afternoon to look over with some questions and things that we're asking for. So we hope that this will be a great opportunity to have the city, all the voters, be able to hear all of the candidates. So once again, that's 5:30 to 7:30 at Matilaha Auditorium, September 7th. And that is co-sponsored by the Ojai Chautauqua, the Ojai Valley News, and the Chamber of Commerce. And so we'll have one feature, which is we can't cover everything in one event. We could have another event in October, but we are going to set up a discussion forum where people could email me questions that I would post, and then any candidate who wishes could respond to it, so then people can continue that conversation and learn more. The second event is we are actively working on it, and this kind of goes to Jeff's point. We're working on our next panel on water. So we're working with Casitas, OBGMA, the City of Ventura, a lot of nonprofits to try to have a comprehensive panel that could illuminate what's happening in the mediation project that's happening right now, which looks favorable. So we hope in October we'll be able to have an event to give us a good take on where are we at with the lake, our groundwater table levels, but also working with the City of Ventura, the state water interconnection, and so on. So look for that coming in October. So I hope the candidates who are renewing, I hope you will attend or consider it seriously, and please email me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next, Robin Gerber, and then Bob Daddy.
Hi, I'm Robin Gerber. Now that filings are closed, I simply wanted to thank Councilman Wyrick and Blatz, the empty chair there, hopefully he's watching, for their service. It's not easy to serve on the council. For those who take it seriously, it requires learning, not only process, like Robertson's rules, but also diving into those tough issues. Water, housing, fire. It requires a thick skin and a belief that the greater good is more important than your personal feeling. It requires collegiality, a willingness to find ways to collaborate even with those you don't agree with or particularly like or respect. because you each have a vote. It is often time-consuming. It is time-consuming, often frustrating, and too often thankless. So let me say thanks. I've not always agreed with you or with Councilman Wyrick, probably less often than more often. But I respect your efforts to wrestle with tough issues, to speak frankly, and to give us all the benefit of your experience. I look forward to a new council, especially after hearing the women tonight, that will focus on collaborating by showing up with open minds and hearts, asking questions of other members at meetings, listening to the public, and getting to yes more often than not. The greatest climate bill in our nation's history was just passed and signed by a president who continued to try and try again, working with people who he surely did not like having to persuade, but he did. That's what this council and those who come next must do on our critical issues. I hope voters will take the time to learn the truth about each candidate and then take them at their word. Let's not add to the conspiracy mongering, the name-calling, misinformation culture. We can agree to disagree with respect. We can reject those who ascribe bad motives to their opposition without evidence. The Ojai, I know, is not looking for division. We want trust and we want love. And I trust Ryan and Bill, wherever you are, that in your future post-council life, you'll continue to contribute to our city's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next, we have Bob Daddy.
Council, Mayor, Robin, that was excellent. Thank you. Very good. I came to talk to trees too. Maybe I'm in the wrong room tonight. I actually want to congratulate the city manager and the staff for removing that massive eucalyptus grove from across the street, giving us defensible space. Should we have an ember cast in fire, we will actually be able to get a unit in here to save this building. I would urge you to look for other places where we can start doing more defensible space. We have a number of invasive areas. We have non-native plants. We have some extremely dangerous vegetation, and I would hope that we would continue to remove some of that. And you have some money left over. I thought it was like $40,000 that we didn't give away to applicants. And I would like you folks to either channel that to recreation, because I think the kids really need to get back from this post-COVID mess they've been living under. Or I would hope that you would spend that money on fire mitigation. I think those are the two most important things you can do at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone on Zoom, Gail?
If there's anyone in the Zoom queue who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. No one's raising their hand.
Thank you. Let's move on to the consent calendar.
Wait,
Oh,
somebody left their phone here. I'll just set it here, but your phone is there.
okay. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Oh, I want to pull item J,
Jay, okay.
the animal ordinance.
Anything else? Nope. Okay, is there a,
We want to move to approve all items other than J
yes,
and pull J for discussion.
okay. So that we have a motion to pull, and then we're pulling Jay. Second for that one?
Second, Wyrick.
Okay. Can we have a roll call, please, Gail?
Councilmember Blatz,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks,
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney,
Yes.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Souza, you want to discuss Jay?
Okay. All right, so if you could go to item J, and because I might go through the pages hopefully efficiently. So my first question, this for the audience, this is the recommendation is that the City Council approve the ordinance amending Title V, Chapter 4, Animals of the Ojai Municipal Code to be consistent with Ventura County Animal Services best practices. And on the whole, I totally agreed with the language changes. Good that we're changing pound master. And, you know, the ordinance is from we have an old ordinance from 1971, when the whole philosophy about animals was completely different. So I do have a list of things that I think is missing, but my initial question is, if we adopt this, is there an opportunity to amend? And these are kind of related questions. Why does the Ojai Animal Ordinance have to be the same as the county? Can we have an opportunity to strengthen it? And is it better to adopt and amend later, or is it better to postpone and have a public hearing on strengthening the ordinance? Because Ojai has backyard chickens, horses, goats, things that are not, I only saw a few lines, and they kind of put all animals, including horses, as they call them, what's the word for livestock. Livestock. I would like to address every animal separately, because the underlying purpose of this ordinance is to protect against animal abuse. And I know these ordinances are weak, because for years I've reported dire animals in dire straits, and the criteria for what constitutes adequate care of an animal is just so low that the officer rarely could do anything. So those are my questions and concerns.
Thank you. Yeah, and last meeting, we had this on, I think it was as a public hearing, it might have been a discussion or a public hearing, and we gave a little bit of an introduction. And so today, I know it's on consent, so we didn't have a chance to explain it. But in short, so we as a city have been working on strengthening our animal keeping ordinance for the last year, I would say.
2 years,
Yeah.
my fault.
No, and I think, I remember that you and I had a draft at one point, and then we heard from the community, and we wanted to take another look, because it is complicated in Ojai, and I think it's like we have to make sure we cover a lot more than maybe some other areas, and we have backyard farms and everything like that. And so we are working on that, and that's not precluded by anything in this. What happened with this is that the county, on the county level, decided that they do not have the resources to do hearings for nuisance complaints. And so they asked each city to take over responsibility for that and to update the ordinance to reflect that. They used the opportunity, and we used the opportunity to do, like you said, the quick cleanup of taking out words that just are not appropriate anymore. Pound master is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But we did not do anything else other substantive except change that hearing process, because the county is just not going to be able to do it. So we had to write it now where for nuisance complaints, if there's a hearing, it goes through our city hearing officer. And so that's all that really substantively is being done. The nuisance process is kind of being tweaked. But we can still come back once that's adopted and rewrite or strengthen our own code in coming months. The county had asked that we adopt this in the meantime so that they can be assured that countywide there is a consistent nuisance hearing process.
Okay, so in general, I'm fine with that, knowing that we can amend it. But there's one point that I feel very strongly about on page 7, at the bottom of the second paragraph. Where it states this: when reasonable effort fails to locate the owner, or when an owner, after having been located, refuses to accept responsibility for further medical treatment of a diseased or injured animal, the director may euthanize such animal in a humane manner. And I would like that paragraph to be the same or similar to the one that's down below, where it states the words that are missing. I'll find them in a second. It says, I think if the animal is in severe pain and not likely to survive, I would be okay with the director having to make that judgment call. But otherwise, the director needs to reach out to rescue groups and volunteers. So if we could add that sentence, I would be okay with this second reading, and then we'll clean it, we'll go deeper at another.
Yeah, I understand. So what I would suggest, it's a little bit of a process. So what I would suggest is I think we should adopt the language we're comfortable with. We'll submit it to the county, and if they come back and ask us to, it doesn't fit with what they're trying to do or whatever, then we'll come back and have that conversation. So if that's the language that the council's comfortable with, I think we should adopt it with that
Yeah,
language.
because it's down below for wild animals, why not apply it to domestic animals?
Certainly, and I would expect, subject to confirmation, the county would be okay with that from our discussions with them.
Yeah.
Applying the same standard for the shelter animals.
Yeah, it doesn't trigger any, things where I think it will cause a problem with them. So
Okay.
I think it's worth.
Randy?
I just, Susan, don't you sit on this?
Yes,
Or
I do.
weren't you part of this review of this?
No,
in
I
a
was not.
substantive-
No.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, but I am the city of Ojai liaison to Ventura County Animal Services, but I did not go through and do, it's mostly things crossed out, and it's an update.
Yeah, because, for instance, some of the things you're identifying is, we don't have an animal shelter here other than the private one that we have.
Yeah, the Ventura
So-
County Humane Society.
Right, so these guidelines don't necessarily, aren't adopted by them and they don't do them. These are for the Humane Society or the animal shelter of the county.
Yes.
So I think we just have to recognize some of this we can change, but some of this is county language that they're using throughout the 9 other cities.
Yes, but we
So
can amend it.
I'm in agreement
Yeah.
with you, I'm just saying, pointing this out, that
Yeah, the
a
process.
lot of this is signed off by all the cities in the county.
Yes,
not
and
just us.
and that is true. At this point, all cities have signed on. We, I think it'll be the theme today, is we were the city that had the most changes and the most requests, and so every other city has signed it at this point. We are the last. We thought it got to a point where it was at least acceptable, but again, we noted that we are planning to make more amendments to this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. At least we're consistent, right? Thank you, Susan, for bringing that up. And as we all know, Ojai is such a huge animal community, so much appreciate all the work that you've done for animals in Ojai. Thank you.
And I wanna-
Mayor,
I wanna
we need a
thank
motion and a
Patty
vote
for
on it, though.
calling this to my attention.
We still have to have a motion and vote on the
Okay.
changes.
You want to make a
Okay.
motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that I might need help, on page 7, that point B adds additional language that that the director may euthanize such an animal in a humane manner if it is in severe pain and not likely to survive, but otherwise, the director will give an opportunity we'll reach out to rescue groups and volunteers that are standing, you can help me with the language, you get the gist, that are willing to help pay for additional medical expenses.
What I would recommend is that the sentence in the ordinance stop at may euthanize such animal in a humane manner if it is in severe pain and not likely to survive, period.
Yes.
The second provision regarding what to do next wouldn't necessarily need to be in the ordinance. That's the standard shelter protocols.
What was the last thing you said?
The second provision regarding what to do instead of euthanasia doesn't necessarily need to be in the ordinance because that's already part of the shelter's operations. Reaching out to rescues is already something they do.
Yeah, and I think the more specific we try to
Okay.
direct them, the more likely they have problems with the language too. So I think
Okay.
saying more what you can't do, would be the way to.
Okay.
Exactly. Limiting their behavior is less likely to draw opposition than affirmatively requiring things.
Okay. I will second that motion. Are you satisfied?
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay.
I'm just a little bit, if in severe pain, not likely to survive. So you're saying that in that case, they would automatically reach out to rescue groups and volunteers? Is that the assumption?
That has been their past practice. If you're concerned regarding the county's behavior, then it'd be fine to add, and in such case, the director shall reach out to available nonprofits regarding medical treatment, something like that.
Yes, I would like that added, actually, based on my experience and observation. I think it's important.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I just have one
Yep.
more thought.
Sure.
Aren't we, and I don't have the right name for it, maybe someone could help me out, but aren't we already a non-kill?
No kill.
No kill.
And they changed that too, but that's a whole other subject.
But I'm just saying, we've already recognized
Yeah.
that as what we are as the county. So I agree with Councilman Francina that this just highlights the differential and makes it clear, or adds clarity of what the Ohioans would like in the verbiage.
Yeah, that's the aim. That's the aim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Roll call, please, Gail.
Oh.
We do have one speaker on this, Bob Daddy.
Sorry.
Going ahead and changing this for the county is fine. There needs to be a discussion of what we do here as far as code enforcement. When Jerry Kirshner was here, he put a whole bunch of miserable draconian laws into this community. In the 2000 O's, we had 3 residents needed for a dog complaint. We had all kinds of different things that were just totally out of character with what we do in Ojai. And what I'd like us to do is I'd like us to revise those, or at least revisit and have a discussion on those things and see if this is the way we actually want to code enforce. I mean, we've got to get away from the divisiveness, and we've got to get away from over enforcing in some areas, where in other areas we've got no code enforcement at all. And so we need to start doing things that are necessary. But the way that went down was we had a dog in the neighborhood. We had to have 3 neighbors make a complaint. And you only have to call code on one other item, and they go out and take care of it. And it's like, I know dogs in Ohio are people. And I know it takes a higher standard, but please make that public to everybody what it is. Allow people to look at it and see if if this still serves our purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I do have one more card, Renee Roth. The public comment is over, though. Is this general public comment, Renee? Okay. Council, are you all right with general public comment?
It won't take long. I just wanted to say I'm running for city council. It's nice to be here and back with people and see my people up here talking about the issues and how to work together and how to solve problems. I love being here, and I'd love to serve the residents of Ojai for District 3 for the city council. Thank you, which is what Ryan is.
No, it's very
Bill.
confusing, but no.
It's very confusing. The district thing is very confusing. I tried to find who's, so anyway. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, we're going to move on to the public hearing. Randy, do you want to make a
Madam Mayor,
suggestion?
did we get a vote on that ordinance, on that motion yet?
Oh,
I thought we did.
I thought we did.
I must have dreamed it.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call, please, Gail?
Mayor Pro Tem Haney,
Yes.
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz.
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes. All right, thank you. Councilmember Haney, Mayor Pro Tem Haney, you have a suggestion?
Yes, I would like to, if the majority of the board would like to, move item 4 forward and then move item 6 ahead of the public hearing on the design review permit DRP 20-004. So bring up number 4 and then bring up number 6.
Okay, it's fine with me.
So 4 was the League of Cities
Yes.
delegate selection, and 6 is the resolution regarding reproductive rights, just so everybody understands.
Is that it?
I'm fine.
Okay, Susan, yep.
And on number 4, I'll nominate myself to take that responsibility.
Wait a minute. Aren't you going?
Well, are you okay with that, moving the schedule? Sure. Okay, all right, well, let's open.
Doesn't make sense, but okay.
We'll move to number 4, designation of voting delegates and alternates for the League of California city's annual conference in Long Beach, September 7th through 9th.
Question is, do you want to go?
Yeah, I will nominate myself. I would like to go, and as the mayor, I feel that that is the appropriate role for me
Oh,
to do.
wonderful. Then I'll back down and
Okay.
say, God bless you.
No, I'm really excited. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Long,
We usually don't get that.
No.
Usually, I don't want it, you can have it.
I want it.
I want you to.
Yeah, Long Beach, here I come. Yeah.
Go, girl.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I will make a motion that I will go.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call, please, Gail.
And no public comment, I assume,
Oh,
on that
no
item.
public comment on that?
There's no public comment, but somebody raised their hand earlier, like during consent. Do you want me to see if they want to speak now or just take care of this first? Okay. Mayor Sticks?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Okay, and thank you. Thank you, Randy.
Do we have
I'm
to
excited.
do an alternate?
We do not have to do an alternate. We can choose to do an alternate, but the,
She seems pretty eager to go.
I am eager.
I think we've got a sure thing this year.
I think it looks really interesting.
They're great. The meetings, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. We will move on to item number 6. Request from 2 council members to adopt a resolution supporting reproductive rights. And I will go ahead and introduce this. Susan, I put this on the agenda. This resolution supports women's reproductive rights. I asked this, or Susan, I asked this to be on the agenda so that the city of Ojai can express solidarity with all the women on this important issue. Ojai is committed to women's rights and reproductive freedom. If approved, this resolution would authorize Ojai to become a right-to-choose sanctuary city that supports codification of the right to an abortion into federal and California constitutional law. It authorizes the city to sign letters of support. Oxnard's resolution is included in the staff report. We've recently witnessed a giant step backward. Here is our opportunity to say yes and make a step forward in a positive direction and show our support for access to a safe abortion, which must be a given for universal health care. So there's no staff report. Any public comments on this issue? On Zoom?
If there's anyone on the Zoom queue who would like to speak on this item, if you would use the raised hand function now. And the one person still has their hand up, but I think it's for a different item, but shall I bring her in and? Okay.
Okay, let's open it for discussion.
Well, are the men in support?
I don't know what you're asking
Okay.
for yet there, Susan. You got to
Okay.
make a motion.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution supporting reproductive rights.
And I'll make a personal comment why a personal reason why I support this. When I was 18, I found myself by immaculate conception to be pregnant. But fortunately, I did not need an abortion because I have a very large extended family here in Ojai, and I knew that that helped me raise the child. But I'm well aware that not everyone is so fortunate, and so while I personally have never needed an abortion, I definitely support a woman's right to choose. We can't judge what dire circumstances somebody else finds themselves in. And I felt like the resolution is very well written, so I second your motion.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Gail?
I think Bill had his hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. Bill, go ahead. I think you're on
You're on
mute.
The problem I have with these kinds of things is I don't see what difference this kind of resolution makes for the lives of people in Ojai because we're a small city, and this is an opinion about a judicial matter. So it amounts to virtue signaling, and I don't like that kind of, I think it's bad governance practice to make it a habit, and I think we're on the verge of making it a habit. So that's my concern.
Okay, thank you, Bill. One thing that I really like about this is it will allow us to sign letters of support, and so I think that's really important. All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Gail.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Mayor Sticks?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and we have one person on Zoom, Gail? Thank you.
So we have one person in the Zoom queue who has their hand raised. I'm going to bring her in. Just one name, Amber, if you could unmute yourself, you can go ahead and speak.
Hi, I so apologize. I had intended to speak on the consent calendar, and apparently I didn't get my hand raised in time. This Zoom world is new to me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. And so I just wanted to just chip in on item G, and I apologize for the timing. It wasn't how I intended. I'd meant to speak during the consent items. Is now an okay time?
Sure.
Okay, excellent. I just, with regards to consent item G, I just, and the regulation
Could you
of
clarify,
events
is
in
it
Libby
D
Park.
or G?
G, it's the
G.
event,
And
the
just,
special event
G.
impacts.
Mitigation
Yeah.
efforts to reduce special event impacts.
Yeah, and I just at first wanted to commend the council and staff for their swift action with regards to the impact of the Lavender Festival and the scale that it was held at this year. And then I wanted to just voice a really quick concern, and will not take up too much of your time, that Libby Park has a tendency to be the most appropriate space in Ojai for events of that type, with vendors and musicians. And Ojai has continually demonstrated that it is a community that wants to support artisans, support small businesses, support musicians, and that if Libby Park is not made available to events of that type, they will find their way that kind of bootleg into other less appropriate spaces. We've seen it with private properties around town. And so the moratorium on special events, especially going to the fall season, just concerns me. That's all.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you for letting me voice. I apologize for the timing.
Oh, of course. All right, we will move on to the public hearing. Item number 2, a design review permit.
I wanted to clarify something. What was it that she said about a moratorium?
I'm not sure. I think what it is we had said that we've suggested that we not allow new events. That I was trying to look for the exact wording.
Large festivals.
Yeah, no additional large festivals beyond the currently existing the Ojai Tennis Tournament, Art in the Park, the Music Festival, Lavender Festival, and Ojai Day. So we propose not allowing any additional large festivals this year.
Okay.
In addition to those,
support
and so we
that,
aren't
yeah.
canceling any events. We aren't, not allowing the existing ones. We're just saying for now, while we kind of figure everything out,
Yes.
not adding a bunch of new ones, because we are getting a lot more interest to have a lot of big events in Ojai.
Yeah.
We are managing our resource better.
Yeah. All right, thank you, James,
Thank
for
you.
clarifying. All right, now we'll move on to public hearing, item number 2. It's a design review permit and conditional use permit regarding expansion of existing rooftop mechanical equipment enclosure for installation of proposed unmanned rooftop wireless facility at 202 West Ojai Avenue. James, we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to do a quick introduction, and we're going to try to keep it fairly high level, and then as deep as everybody wants to get into it, we can get into it. I know the packet is huge because of this item, and we have about 4 or 5 inches devoted to this item, but it's actually very simple. In November of 2020, AT&T submitted a request to the city to expand a screened rooftop area on their building on 202 West Ojai Avenue. So that they could install a rooftop wireless facility. The city is allowed to apply certain standards to these facilities, but we are limited in our ability to just to not allow them, essentially. So we have worked closely with the Historic Preservation Commission, with the Planning Commission, and with AT&T to kind of work through all of those standards that the city has. And we are now at the point where it's gone through each of those boards and it's to the city council for consideration. And so Lucas is going to walk through just quickly where the site is and what's being proposed.
Thank you. So my name is Lucas Seibert, Community Development Director for the City of Ojai. What you have before you tonight, before this council tonight, is an unmanned rooftop wireless facility, which includes 9 antennas and supporting equipment located behind what's already an existing parapet, which will be raised approximately 3 feet up to a height of about 35 feet and expanded slightly about 130 square feet, still within the framework of the parapet itself. There's just some extra area that they're going to take advantage of. So here is a site plan identifying that location. The circled red area is that parapet area on the rooftop. No changes to the roof and material. However, the parapet itself, as I said before, will be raised up to a height of 35 feet within the C1 zoning district. That is consistent. The maximum height there is 35 feet. Here we have a photo simulation. At the bottom left-hand corner is the existing parapet. What you see here at the top, which is much larger, the proposed, is the parapet itself being raised approximately 3 feet and then expanded, like I had said before, about 130 square feet.
Lucas, so your measurement is from the ground to the top of the parapet?
Correct.
35 feet?
From the, yeah, not from the antennas, but from the top of the parapet. Exactly.
And the existing height is
32 feet is the existing height, yes. So it's raising it up 3 feet. And then this is another photo sim taken from the southwest, looking southwest. You can see here that the 132 square feet is roughly this area here. And then here is a coverage map. Typically when you're looking at the impacts and the positive impacts that you're seeing from wireless facilities actually having additional coverage. This is the existing coverage without the wireless facility being active. Here you're seeing the color change more green. The green area is the indoor signal. The yellow area is in-vehicle signal, and the purple would be outdoor signal area. So again, here's what it is existing. With the activation of this wireless facility, here's the proposal. So why is this project before City Council? Well, in 2015, City Council adopted a resolution 15-13, which requires final City Council approval for new wireless facilities. Typically with design review and conditional use permits, the buck stops with Planning Commission. There was that resolution that was adopted by City Council, which takes it a step further, requiring also approval by this body.
May I ask, did you say 2015?
Yeah, 2015.
Okay, no wonder I don't remember it. Okay.
And it's a policy that we continue moving forward with any wireless facilities that are being proposed. So, and that's the reason for this rooftop wireless facility being before council for consideration. City staff has reviewed the wireless facility standard closely and had public review at both Historic Preservation Commission and Planning Commission. And city staff and Planning Commission, as a part of Planning Commission's approval through their resolution in early July, confirms all standards have been met. And then city, I think it's important to also note that while there's certainly a lot of federal regulations that have stripped the powers of local jurisdictions, we still retain full power over aesthetics. So I think that's important to note here as well. So with that, staff is recommending approval. If the council and mayor have any questions, we could certainly
Thank you, Lucas.
walk through that.
Any questions from council?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So we have full power over aesthetics, but we don't have the power to deny.
Correct.
Health reasons.
At this point, correct. Congress has taken away any power for the city to deny a wireless facility as a result of any concerns regarding radio frequency emissions. That power was taken away from us by Congress.
But my understanding is that we did retain some power to put them away from as far away from residential.
Yes, we have certain siting standards, and this meets all of the siting standards in our code regarding where the facility can be located.
Unfortunate, in my opinion.
Or staffs, agreed, but staffs also would note through the work of the ordinance, through the requirements we have in place, they have come to us with a facility that is not visible and that meets all of our aesthetic standards. It's still a facility, but it does meet all of our aesthetic standards.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Bill has a question. Bill, go ahead.
Yes, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Summers, but I also believe when you say what the Congress took away, they also took away some ability to regulate height, as I believe, not just the RF emissions, but also they basically said that we had to allow some limited height adjustments. Is my memory correct on that?
Yes, you are correct. If a carrier can show that a proposed facility at a particular height is necessary to close a significant gap in coverage, cell coverage, and is the least intrusive means to do so, then they can exceed our height standards. However, in this case, they have met our height standard, which is 35 feet in the C1 zone, and they are at 35 feet.
Right, they've met it, which even if we wanted to deny the height increase, we're very weak grounds to do that based on the congressional regulations, is my
Correct.
Understanding.
Exactly.
So
between the
we've
congressional
done all we
regulations.
can in terms of aesthetics, basically. Okay.
That's correct. We wouldn't have very limited ability to successfully deny the increase in height up to the height limit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's it for questions?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Susan.
And so the justification is they're claiming that we need better coverage? Is that the claim? What's the?
Yes, so that map showed that, and if you can go back to it, Lucas, it shows the difference in the impact in coverage. I believe the green is the indoor signal, and so right now, a big chunk of that area probably doesn't get good phone reception inside, or get good cellular reception inside. They're saying, can you go to the next slide? Now you can see that whole area becomes green, so all of those areas are going to have strong enough reception that they'll have reception inside moving forward. So the argument is that it's going to increase the coverage of the cellular service.
No going back to landlines.
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see.
But I will say this is the third item on the agenda where they said our standards were very high, and but as you said, unfortunately they were able to meet them. So.
Thank you.
And once again, we're consistent. Yes. Okay, well, with that, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. First, we have Chet Hilgers, and then nope, and someone else with a signature. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Couple of questions, few questions. So this is a CUP. What is the purpose of a CUP? And who enforces the CUP? And if Pac Bell started selling phones under an Easy Up, let's say, on their property, could they do that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. And I have one more public comment on this issue.
Mayor, do we want the city attorney or James to respond to that?
Yep. Is that you, Larry, though? Okay.
Can the city attorney respond?
Yep, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, we're happy to. Generally, it's the city staff and code enforcement that enforce the conditions of any conditional use permit as imposed and adopted by the city council, subject in certain cases to certain other enforcement authorities. Here, for example, the FCC enforces the RF emission standards. The city enforces the aesthetic requirements. And in the example cited, if AT&T were to start selling retail phones, that's a new land use and would need approval as a new land use, although that's specific to that situation. Other situations would require assessment on their own merits. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. All right, is there someone else who filled out a card for this item? I think it might say J, but I'm not positive.
I think it's Larry.
Nope. Okay. Larry, okay, go ahead.
Larry Steingold, taxpayer, citizen, voter. I have AT&T, the phone's on mobile, and it could be a lot better, so towers are fine. 5G I don't know about. Could you put the picture back up of the building, please? Of that thing on top that looks so well in Ojai? Okay. The fact that we're making a restaurateur take down his frame or renovate his restaurant patio because it doesn't go with the building seems to be not consistent with Ojai standards of a big box on top of a building with a red tile roof. It looks like a refrigeration plant or something. can you make them put red tiles? Can you make them do something to make it look like it belongs as part of the building rather than something else? Because it looks like it's just spraying eternal. So please, try to do that, because you can force them for aesthetics, right? You can make them look like it belongs in Ojai, just like we're making everybody else in downtown look like Ojai. Stucco, tile, whatever. But it's got to be consistent. So there's no reason why we can't force them to do that. Other than that, as long as reception gets better, because right now it's pretty lousy.
Thank you, Larry. Any public comments on Zoom, Gail?
If there's anyone in the Zoom queue who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise hand function now.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and move on to discussion.
He cares.
So we're moving on to discussion?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Move to approve the design review permit, DRP 20-004, and conditional use permit, CUP 20-005, regarding expansion of existing rooftop mechanical equipment enclosure for installation of proposed unmanned rooftop wireless facility, including 9 antennas and supporting equipment located at 202 West Ojai Avenue with an assessor's parcel number 021-0-104-070, general plan land use designation downtown commercial DC, and zoning classification as general commercial C1, owner Pac Bell Telephone, applicant Chris Doheny SmartLink.
Thank you, Randy. I will second that. That's a mouthful. I'll second that.
I have a question.
Okay.
You know, I should have brought this up sooner, but do we have an update? Because, you know, this is the same company that, aren't they responsible for the parking lot that's across the street from there that we've had a hard time getting them to do any maintenance on that is a complete disaster?
Mm-hmm.
And do we have any ability to condition this on them actually doing that? That's part of their contractual obligation with this?
So we have, as part of this process, we've talked to them and had them do some cleanup and some maintenance. I guess I'll look to the community development director. And
Because
city
it's a
attorney.
different site, I don't see a defensible way under the significant federal laws adopted by Congress protecting cell sites to tie the two together.
Well, I mean, the shadow from this goes on the other lot. Is that not
Correct,
close enough?
but it's also across the street. And there is a lot tie in place from 1978 between the two, but that just requires that it presently be used as a parking lot. It didn't require existing maintenance standards. However, we do have significant existing code standards that require maintaining property in good shape and in good standards. So we could use the code enforcement process separate from this to pursue that.
Wasn't part of their conditional use of the building itself tied into the maintenance on the property across the street? Is that not sufficient ties to?
Tied into providing adequate parking. And
For that building.
Right, but they no longer need that because there's no employees in the building at this point. It's no longer a switchboard.
Well, they're going to need it for however they're going to build this thing on top of their roof. You can't say they don't need any parking because they don't have employees when they're going to build something on top of it, and they're currently parking their employees in a lot that is frankly kind of dangerous to walk through at night, and there's potential liability. And this is across the street from my office, so I'm really familiar with it. They are cleaning it, and they're finally cleaning it with electric equipment. So we've gotten them that far, which are both two good things.
A lot of effort.
But I am concerned because, you know, especially when the museum has events back there, which is another city property, it tends to fill up that entire lot, and it tends to be during the fall season after the time changes, it's pretty dark. So I just want to bring it up again that parking lot is a mess. It is completely full of potholes. It hasn't been refurbished in a long time. It's very dangerous when it's dark out. There's not sufficient lighting, and especially when it rains, although it doesn't do that much, it can be extra dangerous because you can't see where the puddles are, and I've seen people fall down. So if we can't tie it into that, then so be it, but I wanted to take the opportunity to say, hey, that lot is a key parking lot in all of our plans. We need to get it done at some point.
Yeah, I think what we can do, so I think our answer is that we can't tie it into this, but what we can do is we can have code inspection go out and separately contact them to try to clean it up. We noted at the beginning that this came in November of 2020. we, at that point, had started immediately with them to say, you need to get that cleaned up, when we started that conversation. So they have been cleaning it, but I know it's not where it needs to be, so we can follow up on that.
Agreed.
Well, I sent pictures. I mean, they were using gas equipment there at first. So at least they've done that. But I do hope, because they do sometimes park where the chain link fence is, which I'm not sure they're supposed to be there or outside. But I think it's worth getting that pushed forward again, because I think we were in talks about one part of they're like, oh, instead of redoing it, we'll sell it to you or give it to you guys.
Yeah, we
But
worked
that
with
didn't
them
work out.
for like 12 months to try to negotiate the city taking it over, and then they ultimately realized that real estate's expensive in Ojai right now, and they didn't want to give it away under the circumstances.
All right, thank you.
We weren't able to reach an agreeable price, but the lot tie remains in place, and thus its value remains subject to the 1978 decision.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, James, and thank you for bringing that up, Ryan. Bill does
I
have
have
a comment.
I wanted to add to Ryan's comments.
Go ahead, Bill.
Mr. Summers, I guess I'm agreeing more with Ryan than you on this one, because the 70s, that is a conditional use permit. So this is a conditional use permit on raising the parapet on a existing conditional use permit that it includes use of the building as well as the shared use parking terms. And I recall very specifically maintenance of that parking lot in that CUP, not just cleaning it, but proper maintenance and repair, as I recall. I could be wrong. So I guess I don't understand why we can't add something at least reiterating the provisions of the 70 CUP, because that CUP was written to standards that, frankly, would not meet current test of scrutiny. And it would seem this is an opportunity to reiterate the standard that was implied, but maybe needed to be restated more appropriately in up-to-date language. So I think Ryan has an important point here.
Happy to respond. So, as I look at it, the prior CUP is for a different land use, and they haven't put that land use at issue, nor have we had gone through the process, issued a notice of violation, done a public hearing, given them proper notice to issue any kind of a notice of violation on the 1978 CUP for alleged violation of its conditions. They've applied to add a new CUP on top for a different land use. The wireless facility is distinct from the wireline equipment they have inside. I think we could pursue it as noted, but it'd have to be pursued separately from this, because it's not one of the standards regarding our wireless ordinance for the wireless facility. I recognize there's an opportune time when we have them over a barrel, but I'm concerned that we would be difficult to defend such a move against the federal laws governing and protecting wireless facilities.
But wasn't that 70 CUP tied to their change of use for the parcel in question that we're talking about?
I believe it was, but again, that nothing here implicates the lot next door or across the street. They'll use it at best for construction parking, but they already have the right to do that. You don't need a separate CUP for construction parking.
Well, there's a couple things, Matt. I don't know about their employees there before. I don't know when they had employees there, how long ago. But I've read the CUP a number of times. Their main thing that they still use it for, and they use it all the time, is for their own maintenance trucks that come in and have to park somewhere. I don't think it was for employees. I thought it was always for those trucks that came in and they didn't want them parking on the street. They needed an auxiliary place to park. So that's one. But regardless, if they got the conditional use to be a wireless facility, and part of that facility required the parking across the street, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and litigate this with you, but it does seem to me that the conditional use of being a wireless facility, and the only reason that they can have the antenna is because of their conditional use of that property priorly, and part of that conditional use included a property across the street in order to do parking. It sure seems like those are all encompassing of the same issue. I mean, the land use designation on the property requires the land across the property. They're clearly tied together through the CUP, and the only reason that they have a right to put in the antenna is because of their compliance with the prior CUP that allowed them that usage. But
They have a right to apply for the wireless facility independent of the prior CUP because they own the land, not because of the prior approvals.
What is the land, what is the designation of the building itself? What is the land use designation for it?
The land is, I believe, zone C1.
Well, I mean, that's a zoning, but
Correct.
what use under C1 are they allowed to do?
Their
Wireless
current-
facility?
That's what they're applying for now. Their existing use is for
And
a
that,
phone
doesn't that
facility.
require conditional use?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though.
what
The
proposal
conditional
is.
use of the original building to be a wireless facility.
No, hold on.
Its current status.
Its existing status is a conditional use permit for a wired facility, a wired utility telephone facility,
Okay,
which
well, it's
require the
telephone
land across the site. But they're applying to add a new CUP for the wireless facility, which doesn't require the parking across the site.
Would they
That's
be,
my concern. Is that
if it was a
there's
restaurant
separation
underneath,
there.
if it was a restaurant underneath and there was no CUP for their current wired facility,
Right.
would they be allowed to have a CUP to put it on the top?
Yeah, they would be able to if they met the rest of the standards.
So the underlying CUP for wired facility is a distinction between that and a wireless facility. You're saying that that conditional use is completely independent, even though it includes the property across the street.
My advice is it's two different uses and two different CUPs.
Well, how are they going to maintain the wireless facility? Aren't they going to do it under the wired CUP? I mean, isn't that
They're
what-
going to park trucks on the land they own next door, probably.
to fix the wireless antenna?
Right.
Which is why
But
we're
the
saying they
parking-
should have to fix the parking lot since they're going to use it to deal with the wireless.
But the fact that they're going to use it doesn't touch on the findings under federal law for denying a wireless facility. That's my concern. We're inviting a federal lawsuit to fix a parking lot.
All right.
What I would suggest, however, and I'll ask if they're present here or in the Zoom, AT&T has heard this discussion. They know that we're gearing up to go after them in code enforcement on the existing CUP standards for the parking lot. Can they commit tonight to fix the parking lot? Are they here, Lucas?
I believe Chris, Chris, are you here?
So let's see if they can commit now to fix this problem.
No pressure, Chris. Welcome to Ojai.
Correct.
Someone get the tar and feathers.
Can someone give Chris his checkbook?
Get the tar warming up.
Light
Hi,
at night.
My name's Chris Doheny. I'm here on representing SmartLink Group. While I'm here on behalf of AT&T, I don't have the authority to authorize them financing or conditioning the parking lot, being two different CUPs. We're not tied to the existing building. We're submitting a new application for a different conditional use permit for the wireless facility on the roof. Our facility does not require parking other than initial construction. The crew to build the facility. Other than that, there'll be no designated parking. We may have one spot that's, check that out, if we do have one spot that's designated as a parking spot, but there's no use for it because it's an unmanned 24-hour facility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any final comments before the
Yeah.
roll call?
Could we, next
Souza?
time we meet, the parking committee meets, could we have that parking lot on our agenda?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Roll call, please, Gail?
Mayor Sticks?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Reluctant, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to the public hearing item number 3, appeals to City Council filed by William Wyrick, William Ulrich, and Bob Daddy related to city not scheduling an appeal hearing before the city's Building Appeals Board of a determination by Ventura County Fire Department requiring sprinklers in a new construction accessory dwelling unit. And I'm going to go through the procedural outline for the Ojai City Council public hearing, or the Shady Lane ADU, and thank you, Matt and James, for working on this. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider 3 appeals related to a decision of the Ventura County Fire Protection District regarding an accessory dwelling unit under construction at 112 Shady Lane. So first we'll have the staff report, then I will open public hearing. We will hear from the property owners, William Morris and Don Morris. If they would like to speak, they may have up to 5 minutes. Second, I will ask the three appellants, Bill Wyrick, Bill Ulrich, and Bob Daddy, if they would like to speak. Each appellant will have up to 5 minutes. Third, we will hear from members of the audience who wish to speak and be heard on this appeal. 3 minutes per person. And so if you'd like to speak, please press the raise hand if you're joining via Zoom. And please press 9 to raise your hand if you're joining via telephone. If you agree with a prior speaker, please feel free to simply state that I agree with the prior speaker. I'll ask each person to begin their comments with their name and city of residence. Then we will take responses to questions raised during the public hearing. At this time, I'll ask staff to respond to questions that arose during the public hearing. And then we will take any additional questions from council members at that point. And then we will leave the public hearing and open and take questions in turn from each council member. And then we'll, after it's closed, the council will deliberate. So I will review that, but just so you know in general. So we do have a staff report on this item, James?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to start with I tried to write a short overview, but it's tough with all the detail on this, but I'm going to try to give just a short overview, and then I'll ask the building official to walk through it in a little bit more detail. So very simply, per the city code, there are essentially two reasons why an appeal would be heard by the Building Appeals Board. First, because a determination is made by the building official, or second, because a determination is made based on the building code or the state housing code. And so it's important to keep that in mind as we move forward on this, that those are the two reasons we would hold a Building Appeals Board appeal. Attachment A in the packet of the, which is the application for the appeal filed by the property owners, clearly states in the property owner's own words that the appeal is of a decision by the Ventura County Fire Department. Requiring residential fire sprinklers in a new construction accessory dwelling unit. In other words, it is not disputed that this is a determination by the fire department and not by the building official. So it's a decision by the county fire department, not by the city's building official. Since each party has agreed this is not a decision by the building official, that means the first criteria to hold an appeal, that a decision be made by the building official, isn't met. This leaves the second option, that the decision be based on the building code or the housing code. The appeal did allege, again, that's the copy of the appeal is included in the packet. The appeal did allege that the decision was based on the California Building Code and the City Municipal Code. As you can see in Section 4 of the form included in the packet, California Building Code, CBC, is underlined, and Ojai Municipal Code, OMC, is underlined. When the city received this appeal, it appeared from reading the appeal application that the applicant was indicating that the fire department had incorrectly applied city code and building code. This was a concern to city staff, and we took the issue seriously because the city of Ojai had specifically not adopted certain fire sprinkler requirements for ADUs in recent years. We believed on first glance that it was possible that the incorrect code was applied because the city did not adopt the standard that other cities had adopted. From the information provided on the appeal, it appeared that this may have been a mistake. Staff reached out to the Ventura County Fire Department, who said that they would look into the matter. And in the meantime, as a courtesy, the city scheduled a hearing so as not to hold up the underlying project. It is important to note that the city code requires that within 45 days of receiving an appeal, the building official must schedule a hearing. And so the city, while we were working on understanding the appeal and determining what had happened, we scheduled the hearing. Subsequently, the fire department provided additional information on the matter. We went back and forth with them. We got some more information, and the fire department clearly stated that this decision was not related to that section of the building code or the city code that we were concerned was inappropriately applied. The fire department provided documentation that showed that this is actually a separate, distinct requirement of the county fire department's fire apparatus code. That code does not necessarily require sprinklers. It requires that there either be access within 100 feet of a fire apparatus access road, or if not, that sprinklers are required. So in simple terms, it gets complicated, but in simple terms, this wasn't the city code or the building code being misapplied. This was the fire department applying their separate fire code. So when we go back to the two criteria we started with to schedule a building appeals board appeal, the first was it needed to be a decision by the building official, which this was not, or that it needed to be a decision based on the city code, building code, or state housing code, and this was not. For these reasons, at this point, the city of Ojai notified the applicants that the appeal was scheduled inaccurately and that there would be no appeal to the building appeals board. Instead, the property owners were advised of the fire code standard and were advised that they could appeal the decision to the Ventura County Fire Department. Our understanding at this point is that they chose not to appeal to the county, but instead continued to appeal to the city. Further, the building official in the meantime was able to work with the fire department and identify a solution to the underlying problem. The fire department has since issued a revised form stating that fire sprinklers are not required at this location. With that matter resolved, I think the simple question I'll be asked is, why is the appeal here? What is being requested? We noted in the packet, we included a comment related to that in the packet, but I will say I don't know what the purpose of holding a building appeals board would be at this point. There's no underlying decision to be made. And I think the comment that we received was that this was a duly submitted appeal and it should be heard. But as we just stated, it's not a duly submitted appeal to the building appeals board. It would be an appeal to the Ventura County Fire Department. Staff therefore recommends denying the appeals. And with that simple explanation, and I know it gets complicated, I'm going to hand it over to our building official to provide some more detail.
May I say something? There's a lot of disturbance coming. Yeah, yeah, and I didn't want to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but it hasn't stopped.
Yeah, James, can you mute all the people on Zoom? That's what the issue is.
Is that what it is? Somebody on Zoom? Oh.
They're hovering around us.
Why didn't we take
Thank you,
care?
Tom, for being here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to give a
microphone.
Oh, there it goes. I'm going to give a brief timeline of what transpired over the course of this appeal to the Building Appeals Board. And on October 7th, 2021, the Ventura County Fire Department issued an approval for an accessory dwelling unit at 112 Shady Lane. The approval included the requirement for installation of an automatic fire sprinkler system per Ventura County Fire Standard 501 and Ventura County Fire Protection District Ordinance Number 29. On May 4th, 2022, the city's contract building official, myself, received an email from William Ulrich, representing the property owner, questioning if sprinklers can be required in Ojai for an ADU less than 1,200 square feet. The city of Ojai had previously not chosen to adopt the building code standards, which would have required automatic fire sprinkler systems for certain ADUs. On May 13, 2022, the property owners, William and Dawn Morris, filed an appeal to the Building Appeals Board of the Ventura County Fire Department's requirement for residential fire sprinklers in their new construction ADU, noting that the city had specifically exempted these requirements in its building code adoption. On May 19, 2022, city staff contacted Ventura County Fire to obtain information related to the determination. The city stated that the Ojai Municipal Code states that the city is included within the fire protection district, but that the Ventura County Fire only has the authority to enforce generally applicable state laws as well as Ventura County Fire department code standards that have been adopted by city ordinance. The letter states that the city of Ojai has never ratified Ventura County Fire Ordinance 29, and it should therefore not be enforced within the city.
Tom, I'll go ahead and pause you there. So the timeline's in the report, and so we can answer any questions about it. I know we have a long discussion, a long meeting, so I don't want to go restate the report that everybody read. So we'll go ahead and answer any questions.
James, is that the report that starts attachment B, page 1 of 2? I'm following
Yeah, it's a staff report.
June 7th, 2022?
No,
That's
this
where it
is
starts, or is
the
am I-
timeline that Tom was referring to is the staff report for tonight's meeting, page, it's 3-1 in the packet. And it has the timeline, as Tom just went through. It gives the
Okay.
timeline for when we received the response from the fire department, when we scheduled the hearing, when we got the additional information that the decision, or the code was not our building code, it was a separate Ventura County Fire Department code. So that's all laid out in the timeline.
All right, thank you, James. All right, so staff report is complete? Yes. Yep, okay, we will go ahead and open the public hearing, and we will first begin hearing from the property owners. Bill Morris, and you have 5 minutes if you'd like to speak. And Gail, can we time 5 minutes? Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can.
City Council and staff, my wife and I are building an accessory dwelling unit for my mother-in-law at 1112 Shady Lane. Ventura County Fire Protection informed us that we would be required to install fire sprinkler system or to relocate our ADU to get it for closer access to comply with ordinance 29, 30, and 31 of the Ventura County Fire Code. According to our reading of California State ADU law, Ventura County Fire could not impose these requirements on our ADU. On May 13th, 2022, we filed an appeal of this interpretation with the Ojai Building Housing Board, Appeals Board. A hearing was scheduled for June 22nd, 2022. On June 17th, the building official canceled the appeal hearing. By cancellation, denied us the ability to appeal the fire sprinkler requirements, and in so denied us our due process rights under California state law. This is an election year for those of you who are running for re-election. The community is watching how this council protects the interests of Ojai citizens, taxpayers, and permit applicants. The building official had no authority to cancel our appeal, should not have done so, and the council should go on record against this exercise of overreaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, now we'll hear from the three appellants, Bill Wyrick, Bill Ulrich, and Bob Daddy. And you have, just a second, Suzette, you'll have up to 5 minutes each to speak. So we'll begin with Bill Wyrick.
Will there be an opportunity to question?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay,
It's
'cause
on-
yeah,
yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you, sorry.
okay, that's okay. Bill?
Would it be possible for Mr. Ulrich and Mr. Daddy to go ahead of me or not?
Sure, yeah.
Good evening. I'm going to explain this a little bit different, so everybody's going to have to pay attention. A 12-year-old girl asked her mom where she came from. And the mom thought, oh my God, I got to go through this. I've got to explain everything. So she explains the birds and the bees and everything. And she said, why did you ask? And she said, because my girlfriend came from Cincinnati. And so when we get into this thing here, what is written here and what I, as the appellant, filed for are kind of like that last bad joke. What I'm appealing is not the fire department and not the regulations and not the sprinklers. It's taking someone's application that is filled out properly, taking their $300, assigning them a date, and then not allowing them to go through with it. That's what my concern is. It's not the end result. The end result was going to be the end result. And then what we did was we required the applicant to write a letter to apply for his money back after we denied and refused them the opportunity to have a hearing. And it just doesn't seem like this is the way this is supposed to be. If we go through, and I can read you the rules, but I'll let Mr. Ulrich read you the rules that said anybody that is affected by any of is entitled to. That's state law. That's got nothing to do with the city. That's state law. And that's how the Building Appeal Board was put together. And it was put together in a manner to deny the city council the ability to override the appeals board. And only Superior Court can do that. And it appears to me that process was taken away from this applicant, and it was a lengthy process. And I think it's time for you to modify this process when somebody is trying to get their mother-in-law or anybody else in a unit and they file for this thing. The city has 45 days to respond. I think that's disgraceful. 45 days is too long. Now, one of my good friends on the board, Tom Farmer, had an epiphany. I said, maybe instead of $300 for an appeal, it should be $50. And Tom said, we wouldn't want to do that, or we'd have hundreds of people appealing the city's decisions. Well, if we would have hundreds of people appealing the city's decisions, then we got some major problems with this process. So I think that this thing could have been handled in a much better way. And again, what I appealed had nothing to do with the sprinklers, the fire department, any of that. It was somebody's right. And then when you hold that time frame and you hold them in abeyance and you stop them from moving forward, then you cancel the hearing 1 week before. That's just not reasonable. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we have Bill Ulrich.
Point of order. Point of order. Why are we hearing 3 discrete appeals, one after another, and then deliberating upon them, rather than discretely hearing them, deliberating, and voting?
Mr. City Attorney?
3 appeals on the exact same subject that are largely identical can be heard together by the city council. Thank you.
They are being heard together, excuse me. However, they are not exactly the same.
You're free to continue to make your arguments to the council, who has the voting power, not myself. The council will hear them together. Thank you.
Well, I disagree with Mr. Summers again. I disagree with the much of the information contained in the staff report. Some of it was actually inaccurate and a misrepresentation of fact. But having said that, I'll proceed. Good evening, council. Mr. Summers, Mr. Vega, staff, Mr. Joswiak. This being an election year and with a good portion of the voting population watching this city council meeting, whether you uphold the right to an appeal of a determination of the building official or deny that right may be worth a few votes either way. That having been said, I filed this appeal as chair of the Building Appeals Board as well as a private citizen, specifically because the subject cancellation denied not only the entrenched concept of due process under California statute and Ojai ordinance, but also undermined and negated the intent of the legislature in so doing. In canceling without a stated reason, and that's the gist of Mr. Daddy's appeal, that's the gist of my appeal. I won't be speaking for Councilman Wyrick's appeal. The building official, Mr. Joswiak, deprived the Morris family of their right to be heard under California Code of Regulations, Title 24, Section 1.8.8.1, as well as the California Health and Safety Code Sections 17920.6 by a duly constituted building appeals or local appeals board. And the distinction under Title 24 and the Code of Regulations specifically goes to appeals, and it's 1.8.8.3. Except as otherwise provided in law, any person, firm, or corporation adversely affected by a decision, order, or determination by a city, county, or city and county relating to the application of building standards published in the California Building Standards Code or any other applicable rule or regulation adopted by the Department of Housing and Community Development, or any lawfully enacted ordinance by a city, county, or city and county, may appeal the issue for resolution to the local appeals board or housing appeals board as appropriate. The local appeals board shall hear appeals relating to new building construction, and the housing appeals board shall hear appeals related to existing buildings. The issue here is Mr. Jesuiak sent a letter that stated, and the meat of the coconut was, the Building Appeals Board cannot hear this appeal. Now, the full complement of the Building Appeals Board was ready, willing, and able to meet on the 22nd of June. So that statement was inaccurate, generic, and did not explain any basis, did not provide any basis that is available or indicated, according to my reading, of the state law and the legislative intent in the creation of the building and the local appeals board concept. So merely canceling it, and once again, assuming that we understand that the local or and specifically the Building Appeals Board is constituted for an appellant, a permit applicant, a citizen to challenge a determination made by the building official, it smells that the building official was the one who canceled the meeting. The specific intent of these enabling California statutes is to provide an unbiased, disinterested forum for a citizen applicant to appeal a determination or requirement that a building official or any public agency that is concerned with the building process seeks to impose upon that citizen applicant. The applicant was denied this right. The building official wrote in his cancellation letter, once again, that the Building Appeals Board is unable to hear your appeal. That was not true. The entire Buildings Appeals Board was ready, as I stated. Further, it is unusual for the appeal to be from a determination of the building official who, in this instance, is the same individual as controlling whether the appeal is heard at all. Nowhere in the California Code of Regulations, Title 24 of the Health and Safety Code, does there exist any legal provision for an appeal cancellation. You just don't say it happens and make it happen without any authorization or authority. This is going counter to legislative intent. The cancellation issue is not moot. Also, issues came up. Cancellation issue is not moot regardless of what has transpired since relative to the fire department, the building official, or anybody. Since due to the fact that without this council upholding one or more of these three appeals before you tonight, the same issue can occur tomorrow, next week, next month, or whenever you are no longer sitting in the seats that you presently occupy. Unless this council, in upholding one or more of these appeals and thereby confirming that city policy is that all appeals will be heard, this denial of due process rights will happen to someone else and become an unconsciously bad precedent. In short, this council should and must make it clear that it is the policy of the city of Ojai that no contract building official, member of city staff, or defunctionary not otherwise specifically empowered by California state law has the ability to deprive a citizen, a taxpayer, or permit applicant their right to a due process appeal as provided by the California legislature.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, just got one more paragraph here. In closing, the council can support this finding and confirm notions of fairness and due process by amending Ojai City Ordinance Title 9, Section 1.215 to include language that specifically precludes and prevents cancellation of a duly submitted appeal under all circumstances. Please keep in the forefront of your deliberation that the building appeals process is a right conveyed to the citizen applicant by the legislature. Do you wish to be seen as taking away the rights of the citizen or applicant? Respectfully, please uphold this appeal from the actions of the building official.
Thank you, Bill. All right, now we'll hear from Bill Wyrick.
I find it disturbing, frankly, that the language of the appeal stating that, for my case, that I was appealing a determination by the Ventura County Fire Department is fundamentally incorrect. My appeal does not mention the Ventura County Fire Department. I appealed the decision of the building official to deny a citizen of our community their due process. The state building code is very clear that every city, county, or city and county shall establish a process to hear or decide appeals of orders, decisions, and determinations made by the enforcing agency, does not specify, enforcing agency, relative to the application and interpretation of this code and other regulations governing construction, use, maintenance, and change of occupancy. That is a right established by the state building code that lies with the city council unless delegated to another construct. In our case, our city ordinance provides that power to the building appeals board. So the idea that all that was discussed here in the staff report are the merits of what the issue is. And to say that we're going to have staff decide on the merits rather than through a public process, through a public hearing right, is a fundamental compromise of the rights of our citizens. And so I think it's very clear in my mind, especially when I see this misrepresentation of my appeal. It was not of the Ventura County Fire Department. The merits of their position versus the position of the building official, that's what is supposed to be done in a public process, in preserving the rights of our citizens. What we heard in the staff report is basically gaslighting, or going through the discussion of the merits of what would be part of a public hearing and a staff determination, not the duly appointed party given by state code, section 1.8.1 and 1.8.2 in the state building code, to decide on those merits. Staff is not supposed to be deciding on these merits. It's supposed to be the duly constituted bodies as designated by state law. And so what we are seeing here is a justification for a cancellation of an appeal duly submitted on the basis of staff deciding on merits as opposed to the bodies that are supposed to hear the merits. And therefore, I'm going to ask this council to take a position on this very fundamental right of due process rights and adopt a position which I'm going to read. Uphold the appeal not on any particular merits, but on the basic principle of due process. Any and all appeals properly submitted per the provisions of the Ojai Municipal Code and in accordance with California State Building Code sections 1.1.8, 1.8.8.1, and 1.8.8.2 shall be heard by either the Building Appeals Board or the Ojai City Council and will not be subject to administrative, employee, nor contract staff denial of the right for the merits of such appeals to be solely considered at duly constituted and conducted hearings. I'm very disappointed that the staff report basically provides a justification for denial of due process and a denial of state law that simply says that we shall have a process to hear or decide appeals of these kinds of matters. And I am not appealing a particular position, not appealing the merits of one position for another. What I'm appealing is the idea that staff can deny due process rights. That is fundamentally wrong, and every member of this council needs to take a position on due process rights for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We'll move on to public comment. We have Wayne Maynard.
Council, 3 minutes or 5 minutes? 3 minutes, good, okay. My name is Wayne Maynard, and I am a resident of the city of Ojai. I'm also a resident of the Ventura County Fire Protection District. We all are. Everybody that lives in the city is also lives within the Fire Protection District. And we have city ordinances and we have fire district ordinances. And as citizens of each of those agencies, we have to comply with both of them, okay? All of the information that you've been hearing tonight referencing California building standards and appeal processes do not apply because the fire district is not enforcing a building standard under the California Building Standards Code. They're enforcing a locally adopted ordinance which regulates fire department vehicle access so that the fire department can get a fire truck to your fire. As an alternative to the 150-foot requirement for the fire department vehicle access, there are provisions that allow fire sprinklers to be installed to increase that distance. So really, the other thing is when you're talking about fire sprinklers being required, I'm sorry if the owner felt that it was a requirement, but the requirement is 150 foot. You have to have all portions of your building within 150 foot of a fire department vehicle access. And if you can't do that, you need to add more access road or move the building. I think the staff report identified 3 options that were given. One of those options was to put fire sprinklers in. So the fire sprinklers really were not required. Okay, they were an option, an alternative method of providing the protection. Because in a fire sprinkler building, you're gonna have a lot smaller fire. The fire department can, not as many resources, all the benefits of fire sprinklers, which the city chooses not to adopt. So I guess that my point of why I'm here is it bothers me that our city does not support the fire department and their ordinances and their abilities or their requirements and such in order to provide protection for our community. And I wish we could figure out how our council can support those. I'm very concerned that the city of Ojai is the only city jurisdiction in the county of Ventura that does not adopt fire sprinkler requirements in commercial buildings that are more restrictive than the state. It's putting firefighters' lives more at risk. It's increasing environmental hazards due to runoff from water, from putting fire hose streams on fires, smoke, all that kind of stuff. Fire sprinklers are really beneficial. And I hope that eventually we'll get a council that will support our fire district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. Next, we have Bill Miley.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Miley. So I'm just going to look at this as a citizen point of view. I read the report. I think I understand it. And I would start out by saying I think all the parties did the right thing. As I understand the issue, just like Mr. Maynard said, it's the access to the unit off of a public street that was the issue. And it was more than 150 feet. So 3 options that he just mentioned was you move it closer by 10 or 15 feet, you put in fire sprinklers, and the issue was to protect the fire personnel as they put out the fire. So it wasn't a building code violation, it was an access code. And as I understand, the building official, code enforcement official, said so. And ultimately, the fire district decided, for whatever reason, to pull it back, and they don't have to do it. And I understand what the applicants, the appellants are asking is that the city council adopt a policy that if any of our citizens within the city of Ojai have an issue about a housing building issue where they're being denied something, regardless of the authority. If the city has no authority, but the fire district has, that homeowner, that property owner, has the right to appeal it to the Buildings Appeal Board, Building Appeal Board. whether the city has authority over it or not. So that the building official would say, look, the fire district has authority, but our city allows you to appeal it to the building's appeal board, even though they don't have the authority, which allows for the applicant to have the proper legal right to have it discussed locally. That's what I think the issue is here. So I would suggest we allow that policy so all property owners can appeal it, even though it doesn't necessarily be in the city code. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we have Masood Aragi.
Good evening. Masood Aragi, Fire Marshal with Ventura County Fire Department. I'm going to try to make this very simple. I heard a lot about the due process. I heard a lot about the right to be heard. Nobody is denying the applicant any of those rights. We have Fire Appeals Board. Fire department decisions can be appealed to the Fire Appeals Board. What we have here is not a decision made by the building official. It was a decision made by the fire department. So any applicant doesn't agree with the fire department, they can appeal to the Fire Appeals Board. It is a due process. It is going to be heard. So there's no rights is not being taken away from the applicant or any applicants. So the way it's being portrayed tonight from the one I hear all the time is that the due process has been taken away. And that is not true. That's absolutely false. The decision by the building official will be made. If somebody disagrees with it, they can go to the Building Appeals Board. Decision made by the fire department will go to the Fire Appeals Board. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of codes and sections are being thrown around. I don't want to confuse you. Just a very simple matter. Now, was it supposed to be scheduled to go to the Building Appeals Board? My thought is, no, it shouldn't have to begin with. So at some point it got canceled. That's what the process was. I'm not here to disagree or kind of argue on that point. To me, it shouldn't have been even be appealed to the Building Appeals Board to begin with. The other point I want to make is that the requirement, I heard them multiple times, that the fire sprinklers was required. It was never required. It is an option. I want to make sure I'm clear. If the building is not sprinklered, the ADU is not, you cannot require sprinklers for ADU because of that. There are other sections of the code that may require that, but that's different. This was an option. Move the building closer, provide an access, or provide sprinklers. That's it. There was never a requirement. There is not a requirement. This project is signed off. I personally went and looked at it and I signed it off. But all these things about required, it is not true. It was an option. It was a mitigation to a problem that the applicant had a choice to either choose or do other options. Move the building, provide an access, whatever that is. And if the applicant didn't agree with it, the Fire Building Appeals Board could hear that decision and could weigh that decision. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Masood. Any speakers on Zoom, Gail?
If there's anyone in the Zoom queue who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise hand function now.
Okay, Robin?
Hi, Robin Gerber. Just quickly, first of all, we love our firefighters. Thank you. Thank you for being careful. Thank you for encouraging us to spend the time that we are spending on this solution, looking for a problem, on actually doing more for fire safety, which has been suggested. You know, I have to admit it, I'm a lawyer too, and you don't have unfettered right to due process. I don't think there's any gaslighting going on here. I think our city manager did a very good job in explaining why this was not appropriate for the Buildings Appeals Board. And I realize the Building Appeals Board jealously and zealously guards its domain, shall we say. This was not apparently appropriate for them. I think everything was handled appropriately, and I'm just sorry that we've had to spend this time on this when we could be spending it on fire, water, housing. Hello. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. All right, now we'll move on to responses to questions raised during the hearing. Staff, any responses at this point to questions?
The one point I would make is I'll refer everyone to attachment D to clarify one or two comments by the appellants, which was the letter that was sent on June 17th, 2022, that by Mr. Drewsback to cancel the appeal. It did provide a basis for the cancellation of the appeal, which was, as noted, that the decision at issue was a county decision, not a city decision. So just wanted to correct the record. It is not that no reason was provided. The reason was stated in that letter. Otherwise, I think we're available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And now we'll move on to council member questions. Any questions from council?
Okay.
Souza?
Yeah, just to clarify what you just said, Matt, Mr. Summers, you did provide a reason why it was canceled, because that was one issue. And then my other
Yes, and the reasons in the letter and attachment D.
Okay, so that was provided. So it's not true that no reason was provided. And was the $300 refunded?
The $300 is in the process of being refunded. I don't know if the check's actually been issued.
Yeah, I know it was sent to the finance department. I'm not sure if it actually was issued.
It wasn't like they have to beg or justify. That would just be automatic because the appeal was, there's no appeal.
Yes, but yes, and I will point out, we're here tonight talking about whether we're going to hold the appeal, so,
Okay.
like, you know, this, like, typically, if an appeal's not heard, we immediately give the refund. If the person is appealing that decision and wants to still hold the appeal, we have to work that out, you know, so it is.
They have to pay for this appeal?
No, they didn't have to pay for this appeal.
All right,
I don't believe.
Okay. Any other?
Wait, let me think.
You have another question?
I think there was another question. Oh, what is the current status? It sounded like the issue was resolved. Is that correct? Or can we hear from the
First, the building official.
So in regards to the fire department issues, the fire department revised their approval form, which is called a Form 610. They revised it and declared on there that no final inspection is required. And as the fire marshal had stated, he is good to go final. We have not finalized the permit yet, as a final inspection has not been requested.
And if I could add
I
one
don't know
further
if I
point
quite
there.
understood that.
Yeah.
The county's original decision is attachment F, and it requires in a couple of places compliance with the fire apparatus access standard, and it states in quote, automatic fire sprinkler systems shall be installed. The county has issued a revised decision, erasing the prior decision and instead saying nothing regarding sprinklers, and adding the requirement that, quote, no final fire inspection required. So the county has rescinded its decision to require sprinklers and is no longer requiring sprinklers for this ADU. And they have affirmed in writing and here tonight that the county fire department does not need to inspect the ADU for it to be completed. It is still in construction and thus has not yet received a final city inspection. But no county inspection will be required. In short, the county fire issue has been resolved.
The county fire issue has been resolved.
For this appeal, for this ADU
That's
at
not entirely-
112.
that's not
Hold
en-
on, you don't have the microphone.
Excuse me, Mr. Ulrich, we're taking questions from council right now, so could you please go sit down at this point? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the county fire apparatus access issue and thus the fire sprinklers issue has been solved for the ADU at 112 Shady Lane. They are still in construction and thus do not yet have a final city inspection. As Mr. Drewsback noted, the final city inspection will assess the usual building codes and standards, but does not require sprinklers. Thank you.
Any other questions? Randy? Yep.
I just have one. It seems like, after hearing all the testimony, that there's a jurisdiction clarification that needs to be addressed. What I heard from the appellants, and they were citing state law, I'm going to believe that's what they cited, and they were saying whether the appeals board, whether it has something to do with the appeals board that they can make a decision on or not, the appeals board still should hear the appeal. That's what I'm hearing. Am I correct? That's what I heard.
That's their request in
That's
short.
the argument that I'm hearing tonight.
That's what I heard.
The appellants
I don't agree.
say they have a right, no matter what, to hear Mr. Morris's appeal. And the other side of it is, staff has made the determination that we don't have jurisdiction over the code cited, so therefore, there's no reason to have an appeal. So how do we amend that? How do we fix that? How do we clarify that so this issue doesn't come back? Because I think that's what the appeals board is looking for, some form of satisfaction as to what is their jurisdiction and what isn't. So, is there something that the city can do in our building appeal board's guidelines or a policy?
Well, and see, I think it's there, and that's was the point of my introduction in stating that decisions that are appealed to the building appeals board have to be two types have to fall under two criteria: building official decision or a decision based on the building code or the housing code. This wasn't. It'd be akin to somebody challenges something the president does tomorrow and files an appeal with the building appeals board. Should we hold the building appeals board meeting because somebody's filed the appeal, or do we say that's not in the jurisdiction of the building appeals board? It's pretty much that simple. And I will just remind everybody, like, the thought of holding an appeal just to hold it and it doesn't hurt anything. It does. It takes taxpayer resources, a lot of taxpayer resources. Today we're here, we probably have spent 15 hours. We pay an hourly rate for the building official. We pay an hourly rate for the city attorney. And I haven't heard why we're doing that, So I do think that we always leave out of the equation that the taxpayers are footing the bill for this. We have other priorities that the city council has asked us to work on. And if it's a valid appeal, that's one thing, but this isn't a valid appeal. Even with what the appellant said is they just want to, they don't think that we have the right to not let them appeal something, but there's nothing left to be done. There's no decision to be made. So,
Thank you, James. Bill, you have a question?
Yeah, Mayor, if you could indulge me, I'd like to make a couple more points about state law.
Oh, we're going to wait because the public, we're still in the. Okay.
Randy asked a question about state law.
Just a minute.
When there's an opportunity,
Bill,
I'd like to provide the
Okay.
specifics.
We are taking questions from council. Any more questions from council? Nope. Okay. Do you have a question? Okay, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and we will move on to council member deliberation. And so, let's begin.
Hey, am I going to be allowed to make a comment on a matter of fact or not?
Council could reopen the public hearing to take further comment from any of the appellants. I would recommend if one appellant is offered the chance to comment, extend it to the others as well, and to the property owner.
All right, wait just a second. I would like to know how the council feels about reopening the public hearing to hear from the appellants again. I would say we should close the public hearing and move on to deliberation. How do you feel, Susan?
Well, to clarify, is Councilmember Wyrick here as a member of the public or as a council member?
He's present as an appellant on this item. Because he was an appellant, under the city's code and applicable due process requirements, he cannot vote on his own appeal. So he is present tonight as if, virtually of course, but as if he were sitting in the audience, speaking at the lectern as a member of the public, because he's an appellant on this item. He cannot vote on it on the city council.
Okay.
Correct. And I was asking, to add some specific citations to the testimony.
I would like to hear it.
Okay, Randy, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think good governance would give each of these appellants a minute to respond to anything that they've heard. I have no problem with that.
You in agreement, right? Okay, let's give Bill 1 minute, and then if one of the other appellants needs a minute.
Yeah, on the jurisdiction issue, State Building Code 1.1.8 states, findings prepared by fire protection districts shall be ratified by the local city, county, or city and county, and filed with the Community Department of Housing and Community Development. State Code 13869.7b says, no ordinance adopted by the district shall be effective until ratification by the city, county, or city and county where the ordinance shall apply. The city has never ratified Ventura Fire Protection District Ordinances 29, 30, and 31, which the fire official is attempting to enforce on an Ojai citizen without the benefit of an appeal on the merits. And also, there was a mention of a fire appeal board without mentioning the constitution of that fire appeals board by the fire marshal. The Health and Safety Code 17920.5 and .6 says members of the appeals board shall not be employees of the enforcing agency. So I'd like to know how that fire appeals board is constituted. Thank you.
Okay, and does either one of the other appellants wish to speak?
Three items. The reason for the denial, notwithstanding what was included in the letter, was not a reason that was authorized under state law. And that was my point, which was misconstrued apparently by Mr. Summers and Mr. Vega. Number two, the fire department conditions that were the revised conditions after Chief Aragi went out there still has item number 2, fire flow shall be no less than 500 gallons per minute at 20 psi. I don't believe our fire water system can produce that, and certainly not on Shady Lane. And then finally, August 5, 2021, CAL FIRE, Office of the State Fire Marshal, Information Bulletin 21-005, page 3. Senate Bill 1069 adds the following exception for automatic residential fire sprinkler systems if all the following conditions exist. The unit meets the definition of an accessory dwelling unit in Government Code 65852.2. The existing primary residence is not required to have an automatic residential sprinkler system. It does not. The detached accessory dwelling does not exceed 1,200 square feet. It's 820. And the unit's on the same lot. There was never a requirement, according to state law, for fire sprinklers, and this is CAL FIRE. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, and Wayne, 1 more minute.
Please, just as a rebuttal to the previous.
Council, would you, can we allow?
If we allow Mr. Maynard, then you're opening up to everyone else.
Okay, I'm sorry, Wayne. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. We're moving on to deliberation. Council?
I'll go. All right. Well, thank you for bringing such an important issue to our attention. Not really. Let me make this really clear. When mom says yes and dad says no, who do you appeal it to? Well, if you go back to the one that already said yes and you're looking for him to say yes, that's kind of a waste of time. We're not imposing this on you. We're not the entity that is saying you need to have sprinklers. So we can't overturn another agency's decision. We can't enforce the building code and enforce it against the fire department. I know you guys have coded a bunch of sections, but that's not what's going on here. This letter that enforced the sprinkler requirements is from fire protection. We don't have the authority to tell them they're wrong. If they tell you you're wrong or deny your appeal, you go to the Superior Court and do it. But they have their own separate process. It's just not a building it's not a building issue. And so you can't take it to our building appeals board. We agree. I voted on not enforcing these ADUs. I do want to say I support all of our firefighters. We have plenty of evidence that says that ADU sprinklers are not as helpful as we've been told, that they cause more damage. And I have a lot of firefighter testimony that I know that when fire sprinklers kick on the inside of a building, it lowers water pressure outside, which is significantly more difficult to stop a fire from the outside. It's good for stopping a fire on the inside. That's why we voted against it. But the idea that anything that's possibly brought up should have an automatic ability to be appealed is counterintuitive to anything. Every jurisdiction has a specific place you have to go to appeal it. You don't go to the Ventura County Superior Court and appeal something in Sacramento. You don't appeal it in Washington, D.C. You appeal it to the local district court, and then it can go up from that. There's a process for that. In this particular situation, there's nothing that makes any logical or legal sense that a building appeals board under the city of Ojai that's not enforcing a rule is the appropriate place to go and have them change their mind. And all of those sections that are brought up don't bring up at the very beginning of those chapters areas where it says that jurisdictional requirements and certain particular issues are under that part of the code, not that they're all lumped in together under one global code of appeal. So this, we're all in agreement, and the end result is it sounds like you don't need sprinklers. So this is a huge win in a lot of different ways. Now, I can't speak for the fire flow requirement, but that was in both of these. It wasn't there just because it doesn't look like it changed when the sprinklers were left out. But the idea that this doesn't bog the city down or should be required on every situation, I disagree with. I've worked with clients who I've disagreed with this city on a professional level about whether or not an appeal should be granted for various issues that come from our departments, but never about saying, hey, the housing and fire are the same department, are making the same decisions. This is a county preemptive ordinance that if it's illegal has to get handled through that channel of appeal. And I appreciate, I might disagree with the fire department about whether we need these sprinklers in our ADUs in Ojai, but we do agree that there's appropriate due process, written down policy that is available for the applicant to go to the appropriate entity who's enforcing this. Our appeals board can just say, we agree, you can't enforce it, but they can't stop the fire department from attempting to enforce it. That's the big difference here. So I do appreciate, I jokingly said at the beginning, if this was a really invasive addition to our code and there was no other avenue to appeal it, I'd be the first one banging on the table and screaming due process and saying that's not right, because we didn't pass that in Ojai for a reason. But like many things that are preempted by state and county law, that doesn't mean it's appropriate to bog down our little municipality with every possible decision that people don't like. The Building Appeals Board wasn't created for that. I was part of that process. It was designed because we got a lot of really crazy determinations out of a prior building official, and we needed a mechanism to be able to quickly and efficiently and cost effectively go and have those issues appealed. And it's not wasted on me, Mr. Daddy, that was your wall where we brought this darn thing up. And it's not wasted on me that the two members who are part of the appeal here and the third one are members of local boards that are asking for this appeal. And at the end, we got a good result. It turns out that the county did kind of what we wanted them to do. So instead of this being the horrible moment of all existence not having due process, sounds like it worked. Sounds like in a way we got where we wanted to get to. And I hope next time we can do that without the rigmarole of a sham appeal that really isn't appealing anything. Because even if we agree with you, we can't change anything that's already happened. And that means it's a tough time. I grant your appeal and we can't do anything else about it. It got to where you wanted to.
Thank you. Souza, Randy?
Thank you, Ryan.
Randy?
So again, I just I go back to the simple part of this, and that's the clarity that needs to be provided to the Building Appeals Board, and maybe we need to go back and actually do some training and actually talk about some of the issues, especially that they have, that we might figure out how to mitigate together. I think that's what I see fundamentally that needs to happen. I agree with what Ryan said. We're not privileged to the complete chain of events. I don't know if Mr. Morris was ever offered by the Fire Protection District the appeal process. I don't know when that happened. I'm assuming that we jumped in to help you, and maybe that's where we got drug into something that maybe we shouldn't have. We tried helping the appellant out, and in turn, we end up being the bad guy. So there's a lot of gray here, but more importantly, I think that there's a way out of this. One, technically, you've won your appeal. Two, we understand that we have some gray that we need to clear up. And three, we're just better as a community having this dialogue.
Susan?
No.
Okay, well, I think it's quite simple. It wasn't a city building code decision. It was a fire code decision, and so this is not a valid appeal. And I really appreciate staff stepping up and solving this issue, and, you know, it's, as Ryan said, we have a great result, so let's celebrate that great teamwork, and, if you don't want, I have a motion, I would make a motion to deny the appeals filed.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please, Gail?
I just want to make clear, even though we're denying the appeal, that doesn't mean that anything's changing. That means that there's not going to be an additional hearing about this hearing to determine whether we can change anything from a prior decision that was already remedied. So just so everyone knows, the denial of the appeal still ends in the same result.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back.
When does he get his money back?
If you could all take your seats and come to quiet, please. We'd like to come back. Hello. Thank you, Chief. Here, we got Chief Rivera.
Well, let's see.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we are going to begin item number 5, the Community Service Grants Funding. So, James, do you have a staff report on this?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on the community service grants and then talk about the process this year up till now. Each year, the city of Ojai provides some community service grants funding in its adopted budget. This year, the city included $151,000 in general community service grant funding for this purpose. I also want to note, because one of the applications is referenced in the packet, that we separately provided $60,000 in funding towards the Ojai Valley Museum, which is now a separate from this group. But so those funds had totaled $211,000. This was a slight increase from prior years, which were $204,000 last year and $157,000 the year prior. Just to give some background, we did some research on neighboring cities. This is a higher level of funding than most than the neighboring cities we looked at. For example, the city of Ventura's general fund budget is approximately 10 times the size of Ojai, $125 million in Ventura against the $13 million budget for Ojai. And Ventura awards $140,000 in community partnership grant funding, is what they call it. So although their budget is approximately 10 times the size, we provided a higher amount of funding towards these services. This reflects, and we talked about this at Budget Committee, and it was stated that this reflects the city's ongoing emphasis on supporting community groups and the focus on prioritizing that support. We also provided some information about the city has other grant opportunities as well, so this is not the only grant opportunity. The city also provides Ojai Arts grants, which are currently open as we speak, and people could apply for those. That information is on the website. And we also provide Libby Bowl fee waivers to support community events. With all of that being said, the city received a record high level of requests this year, more than 13 applications requesting over $340,000, which would be well in excess of what we've ever budgeted for this purpose. Because the requests were so much higher than in prior years and higher than what we expected, the City Council tasked the Budget Committee with reviewing the applications and determining a process to move forward at one of the meetings just prior to the summer recess. During the summer recess, we held the Budget Committee meeting and identified the recommendations in this report. Let me start by noting that obviously, if we have $150,000 and requests are over $340,000, this was a tough task. I think everybody involved felt that way. All these organizations are great and worthy organizations, but we simply didn't have the funding to give everybody the funding that they requested. In the past, the city had very broad criteria, very generic, broad criteria. I think it was 2 or 3 bullet points, essentially. When we looked at the amount of funding available and the amount of funding requested, staff suggested to the Budget Committee that a first step towards moving forward on this process would be to look at neighboring cities' programs, look at their criteria, and develop better, more thorough criteria for these grants. And so that's what we did. We reviewed Ventura and Thousand Oaks, and we used some of their criteria. We didn't take all of their criteria. There were certain things that we felt weren't a fit for Ojai. For example, one city said only grants and projects within its city limits would be qualified for grants. We know as a city, generally, we view the valley as kind of one valley, and that a lot of the agencies, such as the Ojai Valley Museum, the Ojai Valley Chamber of Commerce, don't limit their activities to just within the city limits. So that's an example of a criteria we didn't take. So we didn't just blindly adopt other city criteria. And so that being said, we developed a a lengthy list of criteria. It was criteria A through O, which is listed on page 2 of the staff report. And we developed that prior to reviewing the applications closely with the idea that we'd agree on the criteria and then apply it. We did that, and then and that analysis of the criteria is included in the staff report. After reviewing it, this recommendation from staff to the committee was to identify the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, the Ojai Valley Chamber of Commerce, and the Ojai Community Farmers Market for their Earth Day event as the 3 grants that satisfied the criteria. We presented that recommendation to the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee had I think it was an hour-plus meeting where they reviewed and agreed and recommended to the City Council that those requests be funded as follows: $30,000 to the Green Coalition, $66,000 to the Chamber of Commerce, and $6,950 to the Ojai Community Farmers Market for the Earth Day event. That recommendation is being presented to the council tonight for approval. The total, I think the subtotal was in the staff report. It was not all of the funding. There is some remaining funds, but the Budget Committee and staff had just recommended identifying those as the ones to receive funding at this time.
So you, James, you identified 102,950, which leaves technically a balance of
I think it's about $48,000, yeah.
Wait, could you-
Thank you. We were on questions from council. Are you finished, James?
Sure.
Okay, any questions from council?
Yeah. Could you clarify what you just said? There's 48,000 remaining?
So the
After the-
adopted budget had $151,000. The total of the recommended projects was $102,000. I think it was $102,050.
So that leaves 48,000. Okay, and did they recommend anything to do with that? It's just sitting there, or can we still use it?
The Budget Committee did not make any further recommendation.
Okay, and then my other question is, did you mention that we had a late request from the Ojai Valley Family Shelter?
Yes.
For 10,000.
Thank you, and that was included in the public comments, but I did forget to mention it. We did receive a request from the Ojai Valley Family Shelter this weekend to be considered for $10,000 in funding.
Okay, thank you, James. Any other questions from council? All right, we will move on to public comment. First, we have Christopher Danch, then Robin Gerber, and then Natasha Saxena.
Hello, I'm Christopher Dance, Executive Director of the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council. Obviously, since the Budget and Finance Committee did not make any recommendations on the merit of the remaining, even the merit on any of the applications, only the criteria, I want to first address the criteria that was indicated regarding the Fire Safe Council, and that was that we have not expended the prior funds from last year or provided a final report on the use of those funds. I think what we have is an unusual situation where those funds from that grant became a committed cash match to a federal state fire assistance grant for the development of an Ojai Valley CWPP, or Community Wildfire Protection Plan. That project has been delayed in the beginning. It's now begun by the failure of the USDA to pay promptly any grant funds to us. And then there was several months of contractor unavailability as they were tied up on another commitment. We have now launched the project in earnest and are now beginning to draw down those funds as we move through the project. The project is slated for completion in October, end of October 2023. We think we can meet that deadline, but we have experienced delays. In fact, everybody related to the CAL FIRE grant and this SFA grant have all been delayed because of the time it's taken. So I want to go quickly to what we're asking for. Number one, the existential threat to the Ojai Valley from wildfire is the fate of paradise, where embers land upon the dense community. The houses then light on fire, become fuel for one another, and a place is wiped out. That ember cast cost paradise 18,000 plus structures. It wasn't the vegetation, it was houses burning other houses. So one of the number one, if not the number one, approach to doing something about that issue is home hardening. But home hardening is a very daunting, very complex issue, particularly so when you have 89% of this building stock in this valley pre-Chapter 70 of the Building Code. So we have the limits of voluntary compliance. We have to start doing something about this complex problem. This project, which is being primarily managed by Ventura Regional, they're here tonight to speak, starts to address in a systematic fashion, how do we go about this problem? And it involves industry participation in the insurance, it involves regulation, it involves data collection, management, and strategy, and that's what this is. The grant that funds Ventura Regional, which is the same grant that we work on other matters with, we don't receive any funding from that for the Fire Safe Council. So for us, what we want to do, and you'll hear from the liaison tonight, is that we are asking for funding to supplement our budget to allow our staff to leverage the work of that liaison and the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council for the benefit of the city of Ojai. To expand the reach of the liaison, which covers an area much larger than Ojai. So that's what we're asking for. This is a serious problem. This is something we're finally being able to address. And let's take this important opportunity and leverage it with a small amount of money for the Fire Safe Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Robin Gerber, and then Natasha Saxena, and then Kathy Nolan.
Thank you. Hi, Robin Gerber again. In the list of the 3 organizations that Mr. Vega mentioned, they're receiving community funding under this item. Which one is different? If you said Chamber of Commerce, you'd be correct. The Green Coalition and Community Farmers Market are 501c3 organizations formed to serve the public, just as you are elected to serve the public. The Chamber is a 501c6 formed to serve its members, who are our local businesses. So why are we granting them $66,000? Well, mercifully down from $102,000, but still, this is a lot of money. As I've said before, this is not normal for a small city anywhere in America. The Chamber's stated mission is to support the interests and promote the economic vitality of its members and maintain a good working relationship with the city, not to be a quasi-employee of this city. $66,000 of our city money is 2/3 of the executive director's salary of the Chamber. My and your and our tax money going to fund an organization whose mission is great for business, but not aimed at the public. And you are creating a conflict of interest, questions on conflict of interest, since the Chamber will inevitably have interests that conflict with some or all of what you want to do with city initiatives. They cannot and should not try to serve the city and their own organization. I've said this before, yet you're encouraging that conflict. You have a quasi-contractor with apparently little oversight. And I'm sorry to say this because I very much admire Mr. Vega and what he's doing. But supposedly, for instance, broadband is an important part of the Chamber's task for us. But do you know that at the last meeting of the Coalition for Broadband, which was on June 23rd, 2022, the Broadband Coalition meeting at which Ventura County was the focus, guess who wasn't there? Our representative from the Chamber. So when is accountability for this unaccountable expenditure going to happen? I don't see it, and I say that right now you should put this on hold. You should conduct a performance audit of Mr. Fleming's work on behalf of the city, for which we paid $102,000 last year. Where's the audit for that? Before you commit, as my mother would say, putting good money after bad. And I would note that there are many needy organizations serving the public who are not given money, and like we just heard from Mr. Danch, $66,000, that can go a long way for the Girls Fund, for fire safety, etc. So they somehow failed to meet the criteria. Maybe we could just give them some help instead of cutting them off and giving $66,000 to an organization that is not serving the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next, we have Natasha Saxena, and then Kathy Nolan.
Hello, everyone. Council members, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Natasha Saxena. I am the Wildfire Safety Liaison that works with the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. So I'm also the full-time liaison that will be conducting home hardening assessments in the Ojai and Ventura region, and I'm here to support the funding request of the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council. So why is this program important, and what does home hardening mean? As you may know, this December marks the 5th year anniversary of the Thomas Fire. It was once the largest fire in California history, but is now the 7th largest fire in California history. The demand on firefighters has increased. Homeowners are increasingly worried about their risk to wildfire, and there is a need for a stronger approach to wildfire preparedness. So what is home hardening? Home hardening is a way to educate and empower homeowners to reduce their home's risk to wildfire damage. Sometimes we believe that fire is a magical thing that can go anywhere it likes, but in reality, it needs fuel to sustain itself. So home hardening encourages a reduction of that fuel at the homeowner level and to prevent the wildfire from spreading. So this program works with the fire department to relieve the pressure on firefighters, and it also saves people and cities millions of dollars in the aftermath of a large wildfire. It will also reduce the cost of homeowners insurance and encourage insurance agencies to stay in the area. It's a proactive approach that shows we are capable of feeling safe in our homes and reducing our risk together as a community, one home at a time. So what are the details of this program? This program itself is one part of 6 projects in the Ventura County Wildfire Collaborative, funded by a 2-year CAL FIRE grant. And all of the recommendations we will be making to homeowners is backed by extensive fire behavioral research. There are 3 liaisons, including myself, that are covering all of Ventura County, and we are tasked with completing 400 home hardening assessments free of cost to homeowners. Our partners at the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council are integral to the success of this grant and project. They will help us to identify neighborhoods in the greatest need of assistance and help get the word out directly to homeowners to sign up for these free home hardening assessments. As your local fire safe council, they are more connected to this community and play a critical role in the overall success. So the $30,000 that they are asking from the city would be used to support this much larger program in wildfire preparedness. So I hope you will strongly consider Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council's request for funding. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Real quick, I'd love to shout out 2 events that'll be happening. So this Thursday at 6 p.m. And we have at 6 p.m. There's going to be a wildfire preparedness workshop free of cost, and it'll be on Zoom. And you can contact me, Natasha, at venturafiresafe.org to get the details. There's also flyers here, and there's also an open house to talk more about this program Friday, September 9th for the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council. Thank you again so much for your time. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you, Natasha. Appreciate that. Next, we have Kathy Nolan.
I think I need my glasses on. Council, staff, I'm Kathy Nolan. I'm here representing the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, and I know I've been at every city council member where this topic has come up and at the budget committee. So I thought I would just say that I'm here to answer any questions, and if you wanted to, I could again provide a short overview of our project, but I thought I'd keep it kind of short and sweet and kind of throw it back to you if you had any questions predominantly.
Thank you, Kathy. Any
I'd
questions?
like to hear are you saying you're willing to give us a quick overview?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to hear it.
Okay. So basically, we have a 4-year project, but we are only asking for funding for year 1, which is the 2022-2023 budget cycle. And the overall project is to create a sustainability hub for the city of Ojai. So the city would become the place for information, for resources, and not only that, the campus would be part of that sustainability hub. So year 1 is basically community engagement, working with city council, with staff, business members in the community, nonprofits, and of course members of the public. So going out and gathering information and bringing it back, doing surveys, et cetera. Also coming up with kind of an intergenerational leadership volunteer program. It would include working with the city, putting together sustainability, probably like a web link or a web page in conjunction with the city website that would have all the information and contact information for people to access. So that's generally year one. Year two would be taking that a little bit further, going into like the design charrette process where you bring the community, the city in and start looking at options for designing the campus. And then ultimately, over the 4-year period, we would be producing a master plan for the entire City Hall campus. So that would include like Stewart Canyon, the Kent Hall, the total 7 or 8 acres. It could even include the Public Works Department across the street. So that's the ultimate, but year one was the one where we're asking funding for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay,
Any more questions? Okay.
sure.
Thank you, Kathy. As you know, I'm really passionate about the City Hall campus project, and I know it's COVID delayed us a little bit, and I'm really I've told this to James enough. I'm really saddened that I'm not going to be around to help move this thing forward. Maybe there'll be a role to play when I'm not on the council anymore. But I just want to say, I really do hope that this is the launching pad for what we want to do. I've heard some of our candidates talking about education and stuff. I don't think everybody in the community totally understands what we've been talking about back there, but really creating what I believe the Smith-Hobson family who donated this land had really intended in the longer term was to not just have it be kind of dilapidated in what I consider its current condition, but to really be a great outdoor space. And I'm hoping that it can really become a great outdoor educational space that's specific to Ojai. So I just want to say thank you for your involvement. I know we share that vision a little bit, and I really hope that this can be part of that launching pad for however long it's going to take. It needs to get done. And as somebody who, I went to the lower campus at Ojai Valley School, and the Smith-Hobson family donated a lot of the buildings, but they also helped fund the outdoor education program there that's meant so much to me. So I really hope in some way this is that continuation of their legacy and what we can do on the City Hall campus and really create an amazing outdoor educational space that can be the future of our local schools and really get something great going on the campus. So thank you, and I hope that this can get funded. I'm totally in support, and I hope it's going to make it even better. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I hope we can, hoping we get it, and if we do, that you can be involved even
Absolutely.
After your city council stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy.
Real quick, it was interesting, Ryan and I were put on, I think we still are on the standing ad hoc committee for this site. But what was interesting, one of the first meetings we had, Ryan brought up the fact that he had, at a grammar school, had come here and actually done nature walks and things of that nature. My vision of the site is obviously botanical gardens and things of that nature. I have the entire, a light view, but a different view. But what sold me was Ryan's enthusiasm towards bringing our youth onto this facility and interacting and touching the earth. And I'm not going to get into walking barefoot because that's for another day. But, but just being a part of, and the fact that we have a facility that lends itself to it. I'm so happy that you've decided to run with this and the group. We're very fortunate here, very fortunate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Really exciting. Any public comments on Zoom, Gail?
If there's anyone in the Zoom queue who would like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand function now.
Okay, let's move on to discussion.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Could we take care of 1 and 3 first? I mean, if we're going to do motions, like we can do them separate, each one separate. I would recommend starting with 1 and then go to 3. And then I would like to discuss 2 and also in addition to number 2, the remaining funds.
Okay, so
That's how I would like to proceed. I don't know, I'd like to know how the rest of you feel.
Well, I have a few opinions on this. Randy, do you want to start, or?
You know, it went through the budget committee. This is what came out of it. So I would take those recommendations for the first three and then take a look at what is presented to us tonight in addition to. And I don't, I'm going to start from the position that I'm not going to limit myself to $151,000. If there's something out there that deserves it, I think we should look at that. And I'm also not 100% behind spending all the money. So, again, the good discussion, but this has been through the process. It's aired publicly, I don't know how many times. It went back to the budget committee, so I'm inclined to go along with what was passed and then discuss what we want to do additionally if we would like to. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, I have a few thoughts on this. I'm for good governance. This means that we follow our own guidelines that will achieve a fair result. This year, we received 14 applications for funding totaling $351,000. We got one over the weekend for 10. We budgeted for $151,000. Therefore, a majority of the applicants are not going to receive funding tonight, unfortunately. According to the decision-making criteria applied, only 3 of the 14 qualify for funding. So I am recommending that we fund 2 of these 3 groups, the Ojai Valley Green Coalition and the Ojai Community Farmers Market. I don't think that we should fund the Chamber of Commerce. The basis of my position is that the Chamber has received $290,000 over 3 years. The Chamber was given 2 tasks by the Council: broadband internet and diversifying our economy. Very little has been done on these 2 fronts, and they're not even in the Chamber's plans anymore. I don't remember us dropping these goals, and I believe that the taxpayers deserve results. In terms of the Fire Safe Council does not meet the criteria. The City of Ojai Budget Committee approved grant approval criteria. One criteria is that a grantee must complete the work outlined in previous grants. The Fire Safe Council received a grant in, I believe, December 2021 for $50,000 for the preparation of a community wildfire preparation plan. Council has not received a final report on this grant or received this plan. Therefore, the Fire Safe Council is not in a position to seek another grant until they perform under the terms of the previous grant agreement. More importantly, they're asking in this grant proposal for office space, 2 assistants' salaries, and workshops. This does not physically harden homes. I'm interested in funding actual physical home hardening. This is not a good use of taxpayers' money. In this year's budget, we stated our 2 goals: to catch up on deferred maintenance and build our reserves. So I'm saying yes to these 2 goals. So I propose that $60,000 that we took out of the reserves for the museum go back to the reserves. We are making progress to get the City Council's goal of 50% in reserves, which was made over a decade ago. The leftover $54,000 goes towards paving, to pave roads that are many years late, many years behind schedule. There are many streets in our town where the pavement is crumbling. Fixing crumbling streets is much more expensive, so we need to get on that now. So let's get on the paving so we can save the money. So I would make a motion to fund the Green Coalition and the Farmers Market, give the $60,000 back that we borrowed from the reserves, and add $54,000 to the paving plan. Bill?
I'm not sure a question's in order before there's a second to your motion. I have a question when it's appropriate.
Well, no one's making motions
Question.
right now.
I just made a motion. You have a question for whom, Bill?
No, I was a little premature. I should not have raised my hand before
okay.
there was a second.
Okay, so there's a motion, a second for that motion? Okay, well, let's continue.
Well, then I think my question would be in order.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to go back to the motion.
Is the recommendation from Budget and Finance, was that unanimous, or was there a dissenting votes in the Budget and Finance Committee?
It was consensus unanimous.
Okay. And so we have two of the council members, including the mayor, are on the Budget and Finance Committee, correct?
But I don't
Yes,
understand.
yes, along with Jeff Raines and Steve Olson.
But,
And
Okay.
Councilmember Haney.
Well, I
and
was just
myself.
asking a matter of fact whether there was a consensus recommendation or there was a dissenting opinion on that recommendation.
okay,
Yes.
so,
Let's, one at a time. Yes, Susan.
okay, it seems like a contradiction. Are you saying that it was a unanimous recommendation, but Mayor Sticks does not want to fund the chamber? So how can that?
I can explain that. So those three organizations follow the criteria. So that's what the Budget Committee decided to send to council, the three organizations that met the criteria, which I agree with.
You agree with the criteria?
I agree with the criteria.
Okay, but it's a little, it's too hard, okay. Okay, so I want to go back.
Well, Susan, I have a question to the same thing, because I just want to make sure it says, the Budget Committee met on August 8th and recommended adopting criteria and funding the agencies that had no conflict identified. Is that not what, all right, so is the staff report wrong, or?
No, so
written poorly, or?
No, and that's why that's the recommendation of the staff report, as well as that was the recommendation from the committee.
Yes.
So,
And
you think they got your
after-
vote wrong, Mayor?
No, I absolutely not. I think that all those three organizations follow the criteria, and after thinking about it, I stated my opinion, so.
Okay, I want to make a different
Yeah,
motion.
go ahead, Susan.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the $30,000 for the Ojai Valley Green Coalition and the Ojai Community Farmers Market. And then, I don't know if I need to say this, but the implication is that we discuss the chamber and the remaining funds separately. We get those two.
That's fine, I'll second
taken
that.
care of. Okay, so-
Can you repeat that one more time?
So
we-
Fund 1 and 3 and
And discuss.
not 2.
Discuss
Discuss
number
further.
2 and the remaining funds separately.
Okay, roll call, please, Gail.
Mayor Sticks?
Time out.
We are voting to fund the farmers market and the Green Coalition, and then we will talk about the rest.
So the motion is to Fund 1, Fund 3.
Yep.
And we have a
So we have
second.
that done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call, please, Gail.
Mayor Sticks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
No.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Susan, do you want to start?
Well, I'm not ready to address the chamber, but I am considering, in spite of that they didn't finish some tasks, just because of the nature of the situation we're in, the fire danger, I am in favor of some form of funding. I don't know about even 30,000 seems like a modest ask. So I'm thinking about that. And I'm also thinking about the Ojai family. I mean, I love almost every person that asked. But because of the extreme housing shortage, the growing number of people living in cars, and myself included, I'm homeless, technically homeless. I know how much it means to take a shower. Until you don't have a shower, you don't know how great it is to have a shower. And if $10,000 would help them give they now have the ability to provide showers twice a week. Maybe with the $10,000, they could do showers 3 times a week. When a person has clean clothes and has had a shower and a good meal, then they can face life. But without that, they just go downhill. So I want to hear everybody else's thoughts on the chamber, and because I'm not ready to make it. I'm on the fence. I won't say I'm on the fence. I'm not ready to withdraw the total amount, and in part because we've set up an expectation with this. I don't know if there's people here that are going to speak during public comment on behalf of the. We didn't have public comment on this, did we?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, well, I would say that if they knew that we weren't gonna fund them, they'd be here.
Which,
There's representatives from all those groups here. I just don't think they chose to.
Yeah, I think they chose not to speak because there was an anticipation. If I read this, I would anticipate that I was getting $66,000 if I.
well, it's.
Oh, for the
it's-
chamber,
it's
you're
on the-
saying?
It's on the agenda to discuss.
And
Yeah,
the
I'm just-
council can always invite a particular rep to
We're opening
comment
another
if the
hearing.
council supports it.
Yeah, I would support hearing, I mean, I heard, there's a lot of truth to what was said by public member Robin Gerber, and I don't disagree with what you said, but I think it would be fair if we're, and I know there's not consensus on the chamber issue, so it needs to be aired out and discussed.
Council, you want to hear from anyone from the chamber, or? I think we've heard a few times.
Their request is in our packet.
Right, okay.
If any of us want to bring up on their behalf and speak to the packet, I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
I have one question, though. I want to be clear on my vote. I voted no because I wanted to include all three of these that were approved by the Budget Committee. Now, is there a way I can bring that back up in a manner that allows me to make a motion that includes all three? Or is that a redundancy of the one and the three that were passed? I just need a clarity.
If I understand the question, it's could you make some sort of a motion that would allow you to vote on all three? I think at this point that would be redundant because the council has approved the funding for two of the three. But in so moving, you could indicate your support for the other two.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
So, speaking on the, if we want to talk about the chamber, it seems like that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. If you take a look at all the activities that they performed for us, broadband was just one of them. City Parking and Traffic Committee, they participated in. Environmental green businesses, they've been a big part of. Well certification of city buildings, they've been a big part of. What all of these community-funded entities do for us is what we can't do for ourselves. We don't have any staff available to do any of this that we've asked. In fact, we've negotiated it. It's pretty. It's an agreement. What's the term that we use, James? We're not just throwing $66,000 at this group. We have a written agreement that we've asked them to perform certain services, and in turn, they'll be funded for that. As far as auditing, I'm going to trust the city manager and his staff as to has the chamber met their requirements, and have they been the entity that we want to do business with? And I have not heard the city manager at any time come in here to any council meeting, much less council meetings that we've had over budget, stating that they have not been.
But I do want to be clear. So we have them do an annual report to the council. So it hasn't been under my review or direction. It's been under they've reported to the council in city council meetings, and that's been the report. So those are the reports.
So it hasn't been reported to you, what I'm hearing. It's been reported to council. And council has not turned them down, and council has not told them to modify their behavior. Council has not renegotiated any of the tasks that we've asked them to do. Am I correct? Thank you. Okay.
On a similar question, just for 1 second. The council asked the chamber 3 years ago, I believe, the two main goals were to diversify the economy and bring in broadband, correct?
Yes.
And that's no longer in their proposal, correct?
I believe so. I just was looking. I know that the diversification, I just looked, and diversification's not in there.
Broadband is in there.
Broadband's in there, but I can't tell if it's a, report on what's been done or if that's part of the future plan. But yeah,
And-
diversification, business diversification is no longer in this proposal.
Okay. And have we made any progress in those areas?
Well, that's why I wanted to be clear because, you know, if the proposal does not include business diversification, we are not holding them to that standard
Right.
because it's not in the proposal. So as a council, the question would be, do you want to give direction on what you do want the chamber to focus on if you're providing funding?
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Thank you. Every year when we do this, even prior to Mayor Betsy being here, with Mayor Johnson, it was the same battle and the same strange, bizarre things that are brought up and misinformation and this back and forth about how we're the only city our size that's funding a Chamber of Commerce. I've been told that Jamie Fleming doesn't live in Ojai. I've been told a million things. I've heard them accused of malfeasance and not doing this and that. They were not only given 2 tasks. There's nothing that says they only had 2 tasks. They were given many tasks. That's per our agreement. Unlike other organizations in the community, we use the chamber to do things we can't do ourselves. That's why they're involved in broadband. Myself and fellow council members have said broadband would be a really positive thing if we could afford it and get it into town. Our staff has said they do not have the manpower to attend the meetings and do everything they need to do. Mr. Fleming, who is the CEO at the chamber and is our main contact there, has had very, very serious medical issues over the last year or so. I don't know exactly how long. That's the only reason why he was not in attendance at whatever this last meeting was. To not bring that up and state it and use it as fodder to undercut the important things that the chamber does is, again, this whole dialogue of negativity and misrepresentation and trying to make things out because you don't like them into a spin job of what's not really going on. They want to make it sound, they that are against this want to make it sound like the CEO's taking money and not doing his job. Well, that's not what's going on. We've held them accountable by requiring deliverables and requiring specific things they need to do. And I will say this again for the umpteenth time. The city of Ojai is so small that what keeps this community upright, the 4th leg of the chair, is the involvement of our nonprofits and our local community organizations. I know next week will be the 9th anniversary of the Ojai Flow vote to take over Golden State Water. That wasn't going to work with just the city. It requires a 4th leg of that chair to sit up. The chamber is our 4th leg of the chair for all of our local businesses. And they do help not just in the city, the entire Ojai Valley. Their chamber mixers and almost all of their events are open to the public. Of course, their statement says they deal with their members because they pay dues. But the reality is, I've never heard the chamber, or when I've worked with the chamber, or when I've been on the chamber, ever heard them exclude anyone from anything that they try and support. And during COVID, this was the one organization out there communicating with small businesses, communicating with the public, making sure people knew about PPP loans, making sure they knew about COVID restrictions, making sure they knew about what they needed to file with the county. We don't allow franchises or formula businesses in this town. We have to give them some backup. We've got to give something to them to help them. When you are a franchise and have a corporate overlord, they have a legal department. They have people that call cities. They have people that were literally form writing letters that would be COVID requests for businesses that I work with outside the city. We've got to have something that we do to help these businesses. And this is not money that goes into a black hole and we don't know where it goes. We monitor it, we make sure it's spent correctly, and it helps keep the chamber afloat because we don't have the business community that has enough members and enough money, and especially post-COVID, to keep this thing together. So I just, you know, if we disagree about funding the Chamber of Commerce for some reason, we can have that discussion. But not because Jamie Fleming didn't show up to a broadband meeting. We're laying broadband conduit in every open trench you saw in Ojai. We wouldn't even know there were meetings if it wasn't for Jamie Fleming at the Chamber. He's attended lots of them. He's put me, Mr. Wyrick, in contact with a lot of good people. We want to see it happen. We know that we can't broaden our business diversity without some form of digital expert business because nothing else really fits well in Ojai. So we're trying to look ahead and do that. But every time we bring this up, the community doesn't like the idea of adding more office buildings or more housing for offices or housing in concert with other jobs. We have the longest average commute, lowest average income. I go through this all the time. The chamber is the one thing that's helping local businesses. My small business gets help from the chamber. Everyone I know who has a small business in town is a member of the chamber. So I just want to say, you're right. Maybe no other city does it, but we have no problem saying every other city does that, but we're Ojai, we're different. But then when it comes to one thing we do different, what do we say we don't like? Oh, we're the one that does it. Nobody else does it, so why should we? Well, we are different, and this is one that we should be on the front end of. And, until James Vega tells me that the money we're spending on the Chamber of Commerce is a waste in his opinion, it's not in mine, and we've lowered what their take is, and we're trying our hardest to make sure we get more out of it. But I just want to say every year this happens. It's an important Ojai institution. It's one of the few that really is the backstop for what we are as Ojai, being a community without franchise and formula businesses, so we got to do something to help them.
Susan.
I want to add to Councilmember Ryan Blatt's comments that Jamie has always participated in the parking committee meeting. And 2 weeks ago, even after he had just had surgery, and I know he was feeling very miserable, he rallied all his forces and participated 100% and made many good suggestions. And I appreciated that very much. Also, I think if the council majority at some point decides not to fund them, I don't think we should do it after we've published the recommendation, the staff recommendation. I think that it should be something that is discussed, a long time, months ago. The council would have a discussion, we'd have an audit, we'd assess, but I would not feel good about pulling the rug out from under them tonight. Just can't feel good about that.
Randy.
So unless Councilman Wyrick would like to speak, I would like to make a motion that we approve the funding for the chamber. Do I need a second?
I'll second that in service to localism, which is so important for our business community.
Roll call, please, Gail.
This is just on the chamber. I know. Okay, we have $48,000.
Let's get the vote.
Yeah, let's
Right?
get
I
this
just want to
done.
make sure, we do still have that, okay.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
Yes, and I'd also include my support to the Green Coalition as well as the farmers market. That's a yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes, and I hope to join Councilman Blatz as an ex-council person in developing our City Hall campus.
Mayor Sticks?
No.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll
Bill-
move
Bill,
on.
Councilman Wyrick is our new pond guy, you know that.
Yeah, we'll let you keep the pond, Councilmember Wyrick.
Okay,
Okay, hold on one second. We still have money left over. Go ahead, Ryan.
All right, I want to say I apologize to the council for the late entry of the Ojai Valley Family Shelter. I am friends with Rod Owen, and I know they had miscommunicated when they were supposed to get some information in, and I know Rod was dealing with his own personal health issues, so I was communicating with them over the weekend and said, it's never too late if it's a really good reason. So I wanted to just say that the reason that they are here is partly because, and this got jammed in, which again I apologize for, is I made them do it. So I think most everybody on the council and in the city know. This is our arm. This is, again, when it comes to homeless, when it comes to people who need help, when it comes to what Sousa said so beautifully about a shower and a good meal. It's the Ojai Valley Family Shelter that steps up, and we have very limitedly ever funded them because they don't ask. And we don't. That doesn't mean every Ojai community organization should ask. We had way more asks than we can provide, but there's some that I'm going to drag them in here kicking and screaming because I think it's an organization that really deserves it. So I just want to set the table for that. It's not entirely their fault that they were late, and I hope that it's one that we can all consider, even though it didn't go through the process the same way, that we can consider funding.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we fund the Ojai Valley Family Shelter, the $10,000 that they asked for.
All right, I will second that.
And I just want to say, I mean, clearly this is a wonderful organization and it's a great thing to support. Once again, going back to good governance, I think it's really important that we follow our own decisions and we have these criteria. And the due date, I believe, for all these grants was in April, James, right?
Yes, that was.
So in fairness to all the different groups, it seems that we should meet deadlines. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Gail.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Mayor Sticks?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay,
All right, just a second. So now we have $38,000 left. Okay, so there's $38,000 in the coffer.
Just for
Yep. Yep.
for clarity, again, council has the ability to increase or decrease at will. So the reality is, we don't have $38,000. We have as much money as we'd like to spend on these entities in this moment.
I respect your opinion. On the other hand, a budget is a budget, and we do not have unlimited funds, and we made the budget, and I think it's really important to stick to the budget. That is good governance.
Don't disagree, but I still say that if we would like to move money from another source into this, now is the time, now is the night to do it, if we feel it's appropriate.
Okay, I really do not feel that that is appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Susan?
Okay, so tomorrow morning, I'm going to call up the Ojai Retreat Cultural Center and personally tell Ulrich that he can apply for an arts grant. That's correct?
And I have notified the grants that could apply for the arts grants based on, we're reading their application, so it appears we notified them that they could apply and that that's currently open and the information's on the website.
You've already notified him?
Yeah, but feel free to double check.
Yeah, I'll call him because he's kind of counting on me to advocate for him. Okay.
Yeah,
All
well,
right.
and that is, the point there is that a lot of cities just have one grant pot.
Yes.
We do have several, and so we got some that applied that they fit more in this pot than this pot. So we're trying to get people to the right places.
And wait, I'm not done. That was a prelude to my motion. Okay, I would like to make a motion to fund the Fire Safe Council for the $30,000 that they asked for. That seems modest in spite, I think Chris Danch, the executive director, tried to explain about the delays. Delays do happen, and I would be in favor of cutting them some slack, and we need all the help we can get with fire prevention. So for that reason, I would advocate to fund them.
Are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Well, I'd like to amend it, Susan, if you would,
Okay.
just add some clarity. The other entities that received in the Budget Committee's appraisal of this, what came in, I don't want to say second, third, fourth, or fifth, but what came after the other three was the Ohio Ed budget for $10,000 and the Girls Empowerment Workshop. Those two were high on everyone's list. So if we did those at $15,000, that actually leaves $23,000 that I could see moving over to the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council versus the 30, and then that brings us up to our $48,000. So if you would agree to amend your motion that way, I'd be happy to
How much for
second.
the girls' empowerment?
The Girls Empowerment Workshop is $5,000.
Okay.
And the Ohio Ed, which is the math tutoring to first-generation college-bound students, is $10,000. And then that leaves $23,000 out of the 48, so that we're not over budget. That would be my amendment to your motion.
Okay, but I would consider that amendment. I want to know if any other council members have amendments to my motion.
I have a question, actually, because those two organizations, and clearly very worthy causes, they didn't meet the criteria, and James, you did reach out to both of them, correct?
Yeah, so at the budget committee, we weren't sure about one question. And the criteria is that what we found in other cities is if a group is working for one agency, they should show that that agency is matching funds. And so we weren't sure at the budget committee meeting because the application wasn't clear for each of them. They are each providing services to the school district. So we agreed at the budget committee meeting that we'd follow up and ask, you know, is the school district matching the donation?
So should we take our funding contingent on them demonstrating they're getting matching funds from the school district?
Well,
that's
I have
And
another
did,
way.
but can I just ask a question? No, what did they answer?
So they each replied, and we added to the report that they each said that no, that they do not receive funding from the school district.
So here's what I would like to do, so that your recommendation is still on the table. How about 25,000 for the Fire Safe Council, and then that leaves, how much?
13,000.
13, so you could still have some
23.
money left for these two other entities if you so desire. Would I get support for that motion?
Yes, you would. I would second that.
Would that be contingent on
Well,
them getting a match from the school
Yes.
district?
Yeah, but are they, how much, is it gonna be 10 and 5? Or, because then you're,
Not 9 and 4?
how are you gonna
Well,
split up?
I would give, because I feel the girls' empowerment, that's why I was gonna separate it. Let you guys work that out, and let's just take care of the 25,000 for the fire safe, and then we can discuss the rest, okay?
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second.
Okay,
For the
Did you
fire
want-
safe. 25 for fire safe is the motion.
okay.
Okay,
It's 25, okay.
roll call, please, Gail?
Could I ask the motion be restated for clarity?
Yes, to simplify things, I'm suggesting, my motion is 25,000 for fire safe, so that there will remain funds for the two, for the Ojai, there's remaining funds that can be discussed separately.
Okay, that's the seconded motion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call, please, Gail?
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Mayor Sticks?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to make a motion for those other?
No, that's their baby.
Let's, well, yeah, 10,000 for Ohio Ed and 5,000 for Girls Empowerment Workshop, contingent upon, each one contingent upon them receiving a matching grant for that full amount from OUSD, or if they get a matching grant from OUSD that's less than that, then only not to exceed the amount they got from OUSD.
Got it, I understand.
But we're going a little over budget now, right?
It'd be 1,000 over budget. I'll find $1,000.
Thank you, James.
One
We have
clarification.
a vacancy right now that would pay for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure we could find that amount. One clarification, if they can find a matching grant source from someone other than OUSD, would that work? I recognize there's a policy question in here.
I think
and
that would
want
be
clarity
fine.
on that.
I mean, look, what we're really saying is we're willing to go 1,000 over budget because we're leveraging it into 15,000 extra, so that seems fair to me.
And
I would
James,
argue that the point of the criteria is saying that if you're providing that service to a group, it should be important enough that they match the funding.
Yeah.
So I think it should be contingent on the.
Well,
match.
I would hope that if we make it contingent, OUSD would do it.
Yeah.
But if they can find the money somewhere else, bless their heart, if it's a private donation,
Okay.
I would be okay with that. I mean, that means they got to do the, yeah.
and that still meets the criteria, correct, James?
And and
Well,
OI Unified
that's
is
what-
not the exclusive educator in this community.
Yeah. So the criteria, just to answer the technical question asked, the criteria says from the agency they are providing service to. So that would be, and I guess one point would be if they provide service to other schools and they can get a match from one of those, that would be satisfactory.
Okay, but the motion does not say that they only can get, they have to get it from that organization, correct?
I mean, if
That was your
if the Girls Empowerment Workshop needs to use Kent Hall but gets $5,000 from somewhere else, I wouldn't want to be stopping them from getting that money. That seems fair.
Okay. They have to get a match.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so they must get a match.
Yeah, but must
Okay,
get a match.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, right?
Let's do the roll call, and then I just
Okay,
have one
okay,
final statement.
roll
I have a
call.
comment
Who was the
too
second?
after. Yeah.
Who was the second?
I
Be
didn't.
the second.
Okay, roll call, please, Gail.
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Haney,
As the second, yes?
Councilmember Blatz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are,
So just
wait,
one
we should
final
wait.
comment, Mayor. I just wanted to say, the only reason I, again, brought these up was the fact that you were pretty adamant in the Budget Committee about funding these two sources. I just think they need to know that you're behind them.
oh, absolutely, and I'm really happy that they're able to meet the criteria and get funding. Okay, we will move on to council member reports.
Well, I have not had a vacation.
No, me neither. What happened to the vacation?
If that's the report.
Randy, you're free to leave.
Anything else to report?
Mayor,
I guess not.
Mayor, I have something.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Mr. Erickson with the Ventura County, Executive Director of the Ventura County Transportation Commission, today put out a blast saying that Steve Bennett's bill, AB 2453, which is going to authorize, with voter approval, a half-cent sales tax for transportation projects throughout Ventura County, basically relaxes one of the constraints that would prevent that. I asked him a question I wanted to share with council and the community, that whether this still is very general in terms of any type of transportation project, not limited to, certain old ways of doing things, like thinking you're going to solve traffic congestion by adding lanes to a freeway. And he was very clear that this is very general, and if the voters pass it, I just want to say that our voice will be an important voice on the Ventura County Transportation Commission for the complete streets mentality, the multimodal mentality that is starting to be supported more and more from the top at Caltrans. So I hope that, down the road, if this is passed, that we pay attention to it, and that we, really try to advance our principles with VCTC if this extra funding source becomes available.
Thank you, Bill. Any other council member
I
reports?
just want to add to that, by the way, this isn't the first time there's been an ask on this type task, on this type tax, and it has failed twice. So it's imperative that we actually get out and get into the cities that do not support it, and actually make sure that we're heard, that we do need this funding, that we do need this money to enhance and improve. And I agree with Councilman Wyrick, complete streets. There's a lot of projects that VCTC has on the table that are going to enhance our ability to reduce our carbon footprint. And it's just imperative that we recognize that, and this half-cent sales tax will go a long ways towards that.
Thank you. City managers report? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ray.
I just wanted to say, I went down on Monday and went to the government center and paid my respects to Carmen Ramirez's picture, and she was a friend of mine. I worked really closely with her in the air pollution control district. I'm gonna try and not cry. Carmen was just really great. I really liked her. My dad knew her. I put this on Facebook. It feels weird. So I just wanted to say something. We probably all knew her, but I work with all 5 supervisors, and she was also on the standing committee, which is a subcommittee at air pollution, when we were hiring the last 2 directors. And it just makes me so sad that she passed away. She was really great. I know she had just talked to James, and she was going to call me because we were going to work on something together. And, for anybody who doesn't know her, she was really fantastic. She shared as I think we all said, she shared the spirit of Ojai, even though she was from Oxnard. And, that's my emotional side of it. I'll use it as a public service announcement since we're here. The individual who was driving apparently wasn't intoxicated or anything weird. It was sunset, really bad glare, didn't see her, is the reports that came back. And his car struck her and she passed away. we've seen that happen so many times here in Ojai. We've had other circumstances that were similar where the same thing was said. Ojai Avenue, various different locales in Ojai at certain times of the year on certain days really have bad glare. I've dealt with clients who've gotten in accidents doing this. The law is that you don't drive your car faster than is safe under whatever the conditions are. That means if you can't see, you don't keep going, you pull over. You literally stop. You do whatever you have to do because you can't see what's in front of you. I've been guilty of this too, where you just kind of keep moving forward. You can't see, the road's still there. But we all have to be disciplined enough to know when it gets that bad, even though the conditions are perfect, that glare situation has lost too many people, and they haven't figured out a better way to make a windshield yet. So I'll use that as the public service announcement, but man, my heart aches. Carmen was just a really good person. She had worked tirelessly as a lawyer for low-income people in Oxnard. She had legal aid things. The outpouring of support at her funeral was amazing. I couldn't get there, but I talked to a couple people who were there. And anyway, if anybody has it, I know I am going to take a couple bucks and donate it to one of the organizations that she was really busy with. And if anybody else feels the same way, but I just want to give my love and to Carmen and her family, and just remind everybody, glare is not the reason anybody should ever get in a car accident. So be smart, be safe, and if that happens to you, then do the right thing and stop driving.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Ryan. And yeah, what an inspiration Carmen was to all of us, and just her heart was clearly in the right place, and she will be sorely missed by all of us.
Yeah, I want to just add, I worked with Carmen for, I guess it's been 6 years, for the quarterly Animal Services Commission meetings. She was the chair, I'm the co-chair, and you could always feel her love for community, for animals, and everything she did was motivated, I feel, from the right place. Just wonderful. And just each time I think about it, I want to cry. And to add to what your very, very important public service announcement, to pull over as soon as it's safe to do so, or go slowly, even if you risk getting rear-ended. How many more accidents do we need due to glare? Because there have been so many in Ojai, 3 or 4 come to mind in our little town. Many have been reported in Ventura County, I feel, as to the best of my recollection. And it's another reminder. We don't know how fast the driver was going. I don't know if that's been revealed, but we do know that for every 5 miles extra, the chances of death increase. So just so important to keep that in mind.
I just want to voice a concern of something that happened to me this week, in the same thing regarding public awareness. I was at the new 4-way stop on Grand.
I know that's
the one I saw in Madeline approved of and wanted. But there was a young woman, this is 6:45 in the morning, with a 2-year-old or 3-year-old child on the back of her electric bike. It was orange, and she flew through that 4-way stop.
Crazy.
Didn't stop, didn't look, didn't think. It was, I'm in a hurry. Obviously, she had someplace she needed to get, and it was more important than being safe. And we just have to, we're evolving here. I'm evolving.
Mm-hmm.
We're evolving. And we need to recognize, especially with a child on the back of your bike, be smart.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to city manager's report.
Thank you. I will just note on that topic, we did have some questions about, we put the flag at half-mast. We joined the rest of the county and all the cities in doing so in memory of Carmen Ramirez. We had a few people ask, if that was they didn't understand or they didn't know that was happening. So if you are wondering why the flags were at half-mast, it was for Carmen Ramirez. I will just quickly say that, yes, we had talked the day before, and one of the great things about Carmen was that she called because she wanted to know how Ojai was doing all of our clean air electric landscaping equipment, and and how that program was working and what we were seeing, because she wanted to take that and roll it out countywide, which I think speaks to both, like, when we talk about doing some of these things and how they impact, we have our small city, but how it impacts things on a bigger scale. But that's also where Supervisor Ramirez was really in sync with Ojai, and also would help do that, actually help get it out to other cities. So that's a big loss for us, because us doing this stuff on our own it's pretty tough to do, so it's definitely a loss for Ojai. But so that being said, that's that information. Tomorrow morning, as part of the city manager's report, tomorrow morning, the community disaster guide community conversation meeting will be at 9 a.m. at Kent Hall. That's a meeting that's open to the public. We'll also record it and play it on TV and on the radio, and have it available for viewing later. But that's a meeting where we're going to have myself, the police chief, and the fire chief answer questions about emergency preparedness, and also try to get the last round of feedback from the community on what's important to them in a community disaster guide. And as we move that community disaster guide forward, which is planned right now to be on the next city council meeting on September 13th. So anybody who's interested can join us at that meeting tomorrow at 9, or watch it on TV or the radio.
Thank you, James. Great step forward. Okay, future agenda items? Oh,
Mayor, I
sorry,
had a
Bill.
question for the city manager report.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Mr. Vega, is there any update on the attempts by the U.S. Forest Service, the Biden administration's U.S. Forest Service, to try to deny standing for the county of Ventura and the city of Ojai on the issue of the Pine Mountain logging, clear cutting issue?
Thank you. Yeah, I think city attorney was actually just going to give us an update, or had said he was going to give us an update on that. So I'll ask him for that update.
Yeah, so the update there is we filed the lawsuit for the city challenging the U.S. Forest Service approval of the Pine Mountain logging project, Reyes Peak logging project, together with similar lawsuits filed by Ventura County and a coalition of environmental nonprofit groups. The Forest Service, in response, filed motions to dismiss our lawsuit and the county lawsuit, contending a lack of standing, meaning a lack of a legal right to seek redress through the courts. We then filed an amended complaint for the city, and the county similarly filed an amended complaint, beefing up our allegations regarding the harms to the city as an institution, as distinct perhaps from the residents, and in its role as community caretaker for harm suffered by the residents from the logging project. And the Forest Service, in response, did not file a second motion to dismiss, but instead answered the complaint, both the city and county, putting them at issue. So with that, the Forest Service has conceded standing at this point, and we move forward to the next step. We will still, of course, have to prove that the city has been harmed as part of the lawsuit by the approval of the logging project, in addition to showing that the logging project violates a variety of federal environmental and substantive laws. And we are continuing to do that in partnership with the city and the county. So short answer, lawsuits moving forward against the federal government, having accepted our arguments for standing.
Thank you. Good work.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. All right, any future agenda items?
Do we need to put trees on the future agenda, or can that be?
Can we talk about that later, James?
Two separate questions. Yeah.
Well, the hiring of an arborist,
So that's not on our current future agenda item list. So if the council wants to add it, that would have to be added by
Mayor Sticks, could I speak to that?
Sure, go ahead.
Long delayed is the update of our urban forestry management plan, which addresses a lot of these issues. We're 2, 3, 4 years past the deadline for a review. It's in draft. I believe we have something in draft form. I believe the tree committee has been very involved with it. Isn't this a question that's part of our urban forestry management plan that's supposed to be already a future agenda item?
Yes, it is. That is a future agenda item. that's correct.
But it's been long delayed. Maybe what council needs to do is, I mean, this is a frustration that I've had, I want to share with my colleagues, is how long this has taken to get to council. And maybe we as a council ought to just push getting that on the agenda sooner rather than later, so these issues can be discussed. That's part of what is in that revised urban forestry management plan.
So is he saying that the hiring of an arborist can be part of that discussion?
It can
Absolutely.
be part of that discussion.
Well,
So would you and Bill, you and Susan would like to agendize that?
Well, I would like to ask that we, as a future agenda item, we get that urban forestry management plan and attendant issues on a future agenda item, time specific. Can we name a time specific this right now for that to be on the agenda so we know what's coming up?
I think, so, I mean, I guess the other item I was going to report is the Public Works Director has taken a position in another agency. And so can I give a specific date to when that report will be done? Not right at this moment.
Yeah, I think it's.
Okay, but I mean, it's been in process now for, what, 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really important, though, to realize that we are missing staff right now, and James is working nonstop, so let's keep that in
Okay.
consideration.
Well,
But yeah,
all right.
of course, the trees are super important. Randy?
so
Yeah, I just think it's important that this urban forestry management plan, the long overdue mandatory review, get before us as soon as possible.
Well, so I'll just, I'll point out, so I'm going to be working on the paving plan and the ATP. Those are my priorities at this point. So
I agree with that.
yeah, so if this is a higher priority than that, I'll prioritize it. If not,
No,
I'll get to it
no.
after that.
No.
Paving.
To judgment.
Paving.
Yeah. But I think the concern is over the Southern California Edison. If there's anything more that you need from us in order to, increase the pressure that they do things right, because many people report, not just in the city, but unfortunately outside the city limit, Myers Oaks.
Aren't they supposed to already notify us, and when they are coming into the city?
Yes, and we've enforced that. The incident that happened, I think it was last week or the week before, not to get completely into it, but it was reported that that it looked like somebody was going to set up and trim, and then they got scared away. And so to some extent, it's like, yes, we are constantly watching. We are constantly sending code enforcement out. We are citing when we catch them. And right now, to me, I consider that a success that they know we're watching them enough that we show up and they run away, or they know that the public sees them and they run away. But I would say maybe the easy question that we can look and come back on is increasing the penalty. We've caught them and clearly the penalty isn't enough to really keep them,
And can we cite them for lack of prior notification if that's indeed in our code?
We should be able to cite them for not getting a permit. Yeah.
But do we
Yeah,
have
we
an
can do that.
arborist? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. We can issue the citation as stated if we can prove that they failed to provide notice in a particular circumstance.
But we want to prevent the damage, not just collect the money. That's not the point. So to prevent the damage, do we have arborists we can call that can be on site?
we have
Well,
an arborist we have an arborist on contract.
And they're required to have an arborist or to provide the arborist report. So we can look at that and see if we could strengthen that. I think that would be the logical next step, and we can bring that back.
Okay, thank you, James. Any future agenda items?
Just
more?
one last thing, Mayor. I reached out to Mike Flood to get a couple of data points for water, and I started talking to him about their old turf replacement program, and I was thinking about how we might want to partner up with them and do another one. They put in 125,000, we do 125, and then the more I talked with Mike about it, we both agreed that we're already saving at a 40% clip. We're exceeding most expectations from most communities regarding saving water. But one of the things that we can do, and he agreed with this, is all of us need to recognize that we can lose our grass and we can lose our plant material, we can't lose our trees. So if anyone's doing any type of landscaping, what they ought to be doing right now is re-irrigating all of their trees. So if they're removing turf on their own, if they're removing grass, if they're installing mulch, if they're installing rocks, whatever they're doing, they need to recognize that you need to drip irrigate all of your existing trees on all of your property. Because we lose our forest, if we think we're toast right now, we're gonna be even more.
Great point. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. Maybe write a letter. Yeah.
I guess we're ready to adjourn. Thank you all for a fruitful and productive meeting, and we're adjourned.
Thank